Hello and welcome to our Cheltenham preview night, brought to you by Paddy Power, which is also my name, the Racing Post and Racing TV. And I'm delighted to be joined by Cheltenham's winning most ever jockey, Mr. Ruby Walsh.
Hey,
Not a
Paddy.
jockey anymore, but he used to be, as you can see. We've got Racing TV broadcaster, the one and only Lydia Hislop. We've got Group 1 winning trainer and general purveyor of good crack, Mr. Tony Mullins. And of course, the internet's favourite bookie turned pundit, Johnny Dineen. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
So usually here I'm meant to give you some boring housekeeping messages, but we've got a lot to get through. So very quickly, I just want to say that if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel you're watching this on. And also, we're going to have loads of free bets and offers and things like that next week, so check those out if you want. Right, now, we've got 28 races to cover. We're going to go through them in chronological order, 7 races per day, and you're not going to go over an hour and a half, or we're not going to go over an hour and a half, we're not going to go over half an hour on a single day, I promise, okay? Right, before we begin, a reminder that if you are having a bet next week, or indeed any week, please do remember to gamble responsibly. Right, let's get on with the show. We will start off with the old curtain raiser, the Supreme. This should be an easy one for you, Ruby. What's Willie running here? Ballyburn is odds on.
Doesn't mean he's going to run here. And look, that'll depend, I imagine, will depend on what exactly Paul Townend wants to do as much as anything else, Paddy, and what Paul Townend wants to ride. So, look, he's obviously going to want to ride Ballyburn, be it that it's in the Supreme or in the Bearing Bingham, and then it'll come down to whether he thinks a Tully Hill or an Atlantique can win, and that will ultimately make the decision, and that won't be made until all the horses have done their work this week and Paul decides which one he really wants to ride.
But it feels like, on that thesis, that Ballyburn is just a penalty kick wherever he goes. Is that fair, or is that a bit overconfident?
There's no such thing, but he's probably the ace in the pack, and then it's probably which one Paul thinks is the king and which one is the queen.
Johnny, from a punting point of view, you can't really do anything yet, can you?
No, well, I suppose, look, from a fella that knows not on the inside, I think you're looking at the exchanges on a constant basis and seeing Ballyburn. To me, it looks like he's heading for the Supreme here. It's 5-4, like that's none or you lose. So and for the bigger race or the other 2.5 mile race, he's like 4-192. So somebody somewhere thinks that Ballyburn is going for the shorter race, and the fact that there was money from Mystical Power. I couldn't see how anyone could back Mystical Power, knowing that they might have a chance of facing Ballyburn. For me, that whoever backed that horse was pretty sure Ballyburn is going to end up the 2 mile race. So I guess my own guess is that he runs in the 2 mile race. Like, he's going to be odds on probably in either race, slight of odds on, maybe even money roughly, but he's going to be very difficult to beat wherever he turns up, I'd say. Yeah.
That Mystical Power is JP's, right?
Yes.
So Mark Walsh will be riding. He doesn't come into the equation for Paul Townend.
No, I think Jericho de Repene and Mystical Power are going to be separated. I can't see how JP would have 2 in the first race and none in the 2.5. I think it's logical thing to do to take one out and chance your arm at 2.5 miles with maybe Mystical Power.
Okay, and it's like, Lydia, is there any kind of angle here with regard to none of the English horse are anyway good enough, are they?
Well, I thought that Jericho de Repene will probably get the kind of race run that might see him in better light, certainly, than Doncaster. I think he would have learned plenty. He won dirty at Doncaster. He had to get down and knuckle down, which was a question mark about him. He looked like there was a potential for him to be a floater. His form doesn't really add up to much, but I suspect just from the way he goes through a race and what he learned last time that he's a lot better than that. And I think if Ballyburn were in the Supreme, that would actually set it wouldn't help in terms of Ballyburn. I think it's by far the likeliest winner. I also think the Supreme is the right race for him in terms of the way he goes. I think there's a small chance were he to go to the Bearing Bingham that if there was a steady pace he might pull. I'd rather see him ridden positively over 2 miles in the Supreme, and that I think will bring out the best in Jericho de Repene, and I could see him hitting the frame.
Okay, and Tony, do you reckon? I mean, Ballyburn, he's just that good?
Yeah, he sets the tempo here for all 3 novice hurls. You know, wherever he goes, the others are going to duck like Ruby said. What Paul will pick, Ballyburn is the one, and it looks to me like he's going to run here. And obviously, the McManus horse then doesn't come into the Paul equation, so he could go either way. JP de Repene, the Henderson JP horse, will probably shove the Annie Power horse out to the 2-5. But a horse that I would mention here as a horse with a real big chance outsider is Tell Her the Name. He's unfortunately a bit ground dependent. I think he bombed out in the Formby, the new race at Aintree on Stephen's Day. But other than that, he got beaten nose his first day in Ascot. He motored in Huntington. Then he bombed out in Aintree. But came back 12 days later on good ground, or better ground anyway, and won 14 lengths again. and the horses have fairly well franked the form behind. So, to me, he's the value. He'll be there going to the last and might just stay on up the hill, but he is ground dependent. And that's an interesting one now. If any have a comment on what the ground is going to be, he needs good ground, in my opinion, because of the way he ran the entry. So
Forecast's okay, isn't it?
It's dry, isn't it? I think.
Cold and dry, is it?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Bring your coat on Tuesday.
Not pretending to be a farmer, I don't fully understand. But even looking at my own fields, I did notice that they dried really quickly last week, and obviously got soaked again. But I just think with the amount of daylight we have right now, you have more daylight hours. Ground is drying faster.
I can just picture Ruby standing in his kitchen with a cup of tea, looking out in the field. Jeez, that field is drying quick.
When you're feeding mares, they tell you only you figure out quick enough whether it's dry or wet.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So you're Ballyburn. Ballyburn.
Yeah.
Ballyburn to win, but I can see
I'm
Jericho.
not Ballyburn. I'm whichever one Paul Townend race.
You're Paul Town and Ballyburn. This is going to be like this all day. Ballyburn, you're...
Ballyburn to win, but I can see Jericho de Repede hitting the frame if that's the way you like to play.
Yeah, Ballyburn, and for a value bet, tell her the name.
And tell her the name. Okay, brilliant. Okay, listen, the Arkle was going to be a relatively boring race until Marine Nationale bombed out last time. And I don't know, I'm thinking Marine Nationale is pretty hard to back now. It's still favourite, pretty hard to back with any confidence. Lydia, how do you see the Arkle?
I can't have Marine Nationale at all after that last run. It was soft ground when he won the Supreme. I don't buy the ground argument necessarily. He might well be better on a side of surface, but he was able to handle it as a novice hurdler. He's had a tongue tie added this season. That clearly puts a question mark in my mind, and his head carriage was awkward. I can't really have him at all. It partly hinges on what Willie Mullins is going to do with Facile Vega and where that horse is going to go. But I was wondering whether the race might set up for Founder 50. This is something that I've sort of slowly come around to. I'm not sure he loves making the running. I think he might be better being handy and just being able to take a lead. Quilixios and Matata are both in the race. And I think he's also had a steadily run race. He's dictated his own terms. He's made it the steadily run race. But I think a more quickly run race where he can get something of a lead and be handy might see him in best light.
So Founder 50. Okay. Ruby?
Wouldn't disagree. And even the way he ran it down Royal on his first start over fences compared to the horse that was running away over hurdles, like when he got to the first fence in Down Royal, which was actually one past the stands, he jammed on and had a look at it. Didn't quite get home in the Drinmore and real heavy ground behind I Am Maximus, but a strongly run race would suit him. As regards Facile Vega, and it's a bit like you're going to end up on Gaelic Warrior later on, they're a bit like Marine Nationale. They had the world, or looked to have Everton in front of them early in the season, but I think all three of those novice chasers have something to prove now after their last starts, or Facile Vega's last two starts, but Gaelic Warrior and Marine Nationale after their last start all have something to prove, and I'd prefer a horse going there on the right foot rather than the back foot. So I'm not really with Facile Vega, and I thought at a price, Paddy, maybe Master Chewy with Matata and Quilixios in there to set it up. I think he could run into the money coming from behind him.
Master Chewy. Didn't think you were going to tip that one. Right, Tony, is that like on Ruby's point there? So, you know, we've seen before over the years when, like, say, a Willie Mullins horse gets there and everything's gone right the whole way along and he becomes a Cheltenham banker and goes and wins. But when you have a stumbling block along the way, is that massive? Is that...
Well, I'd say this is the horse that has more irritated Willie than any other horse. He's adamant that he's the champion, and he just doesn't seem to be able to prove it. But when you strip down a few things with Facile Vega, it's very interesting. He's bombed out 3 times really in his life, and all 3 were in Leopardstown. And other than that, he's never been beaten. Only Marine Nationale beat him a half a length. So if you take it that he hates Leopardstown, now he did win it early in his career, but if you take it that he now hates Leopardstown, he's never been beaten.
Right.
Only by Marine Nationale last year, who I believe now.
So apart from this, it's like talking to one of my kids about their season, but they're unbeaten except for those 4 times they got beat.
Yes, but all the times that he got beaten were in Leopardstown. He never looked happy. And in fairness, last year, if you look back at the Supreme, he made a fair mistake at the last.
Yeah.
So even if the Marine Nationale comes back to his best, your man is still right beside him. I think he's the value bet in a now quite open.
I just think you go here, you go the Arkle.
But his Leopardstown record is 50%.
Yeah, but I'm blaming Leopardstown, and I'm blaming a few things that when he got into the back straight in Leopardstown, those walking the parks, when they get a run on you, they can get free, you know, and the undulating track, I think, will help to keep Paul and him busy.
The flip side is he does like Cheltenham as well. I mean,
He had 2 runs in it.
And really excelled there. I think soft ground helps him as well. I've always been of that view. I do think he hangs in the air too long for a 2-miler. I'd rather see him in the turners. If you were just looking at him by himself in isolation, regardless of his stable companions and where they might go, I'd feel that he would have more of a chance in the turners.
Okay. Settle this for us, Johnny, will you?
Yeah, look, Marie National is very difficult to back, I think, and from a punting point of view. Like, he had a very ungainly head carriage for starters, and like that was a poor run the last year. You'd find it hard to forgive him, and he's back into a price now. He's heading back into 5,294. He'd have been even money if he had won it. He's not a great price, I think, like considering that it was such a poor effort. I do think that the Irish horses are much of muchness. The likes of Found 50, Elate, Tom, Facet, Vega. I could see a horse improving past all of those, you know what I mean? And I was looking at JPR1, but then when you analyse his form, it isn't really there, to be honest, even though he's a very admirable horse, great jumper in that. I'm getting a real good push for Calixias. I heard that's working tremendous, that horse. And originally I didn't really fancy it, but when I go down and look through him, it looks like In the Pocket isn't going to make that race now. I'm going to think, when it comes to the day, I'm going to chance Calixias, I think. I'd like a horse up in the van in this kind of a race anyway, and it can jump properly. And he doesn't have form tied in with all these other ones. I do think if one horse will come and possibly improve past all of these Irish horses and maybe be able to beat him, and I think he's the one I'm going to go for.
Okay, Calixias, right. So Calixias for you.
Master Chewy each way.
Master Chewy each way.
Van der 50 for me. I think we should mention Ileti Tom, shouldn't we? Because he did beat Van der 50. The only thing that's against him coming into it, he seems to have taken to fences really well, is that twice now he's blown out at the festival. Last time making a quick, precipitate move and when too keen in the Triumph. But if he handles Cheltenham, then he shouldn't be ignored. But anyway, Van der 50.
Yeah, I asked Danny the other day about Ilite Tom, and he says, look, every one of them in the arc will have a problem. He says, this lad doesn't.
That's a good point.
That was the, you know, Johnny came up with reasons why this one will get better, and so did Ruby and Lydia. So if you take the one horse that has no problems, just mightn't, his form mightn't be, well, it probably is good enough the last day.
To me, he's the one horse, if you'd pick to be in the first 3, Elate Tom.
Dead reliable.
Yeah, absolutely. But whether you'd be just suspicious of something, you come and beat him at the same time.
Okay, we're on to the first handicap we're going to look at. This is the Ultima, and before we get to it, Tony, you want to discuss, for the benefit of our dear viewers and punters and me, because I don't have a rashers either, the different opinions of the various handicappers between the Irish and English and the French and etc. etc. etc.
This has been going on since the late Noel O'Brien's time, the argument between horses getting a higher handicap rating in England, and you know, it's an amazing one. I can't follow it really, but you know, horses that are rated 130 here go over and they're put in at 138 in England, and they still win. Then you had Sophie Leach's horse came over here to the Leopardstown Festival. Now it's hard to get a line on him because he won his previous race and the penalties, and it's hard to see whether, you know, to get a look at, but he was able to win his handicap. And then you have the French lad, which is only going to be relevant to one race this year now, but the English lad on French horses. His opinion is that he gives them £2 for every kilo. But you went to school, and you know, you went to a very good school, that a kilo is 2.25 pounds.
Right.
But he has chosen to drop that quarter, which should give every horse, we'll say on 60 or 70 pounds, it gives them £15. So from that, there should be a certainty. But Gaelic Warrior tried it 2 years ago and he got beat. And what tried it last year and got beat?
Well, Oldcastle and Mock got beaten in the Betfair hurdle. It's 2.217, so it's not quite a quarter. It works out at just over 10%.
Yeah.
But the record is horrific. The French horses are 2 from 81.
Every
Makes no
time
sense.
you think, here we have 10% up our sleeve. Yeah. Not one of them have won.
I think there was a horse called Bad running the race last year.
Yeah,
that's right. That was the one they were all
off the
talking
board.
about.
Yeah,
The unfortunate thing with Bad was he was very bad. He just put and rubbered the whole way. He put his head up and Rachel, and still led to the last. And he's going to be a good horse. You know, he's coming back now, but he blew his mind last year.
Right.
Possibly, he's not a great line because he was only in England about 3 weeks when he ran last year, and sure, he was headless. You know, so but that's just to explain about.
So
the
your
handicap.
explanation is that you don't have the answer.
No, and I have the answer is that they have 10% up the sleeve, but not one of them have won.
Okay. Thanks.
So in other words, how much do you need up your sleeve?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Barney
not
Curry
enough.
always said you wanted about 4 stone, and the other's not trying.
Right. Well, that's clear as mud. Anyway, thanks, Tony, for that. Anyway, for that brilliant, succinct explanation, we shall let you off the hook for the Ultima. Okay, you don't have to give us a tip
Well,
here.
I'm going to put in my thing with meeting of the waters is a good thing.
Okay. I was about to start with that saying meet at the waters. They're talking about like potential Gold Cup horse, etc. And you reckon he's that well handicapped?
Well, they reckon, I'm hearing out of Willie's, that this lad jumps brilliant and he's at a handicap level here that bit like Cara Gramler for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Is it still true that Willie Mullins hasn't trained a handicap chase winner at Cheltenham ever?
That's still a fact.
Still a fact, yeah. So is this the one?
Why is this the one?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Won the Paddy Power off 130. He got 15 in Ireland for it, and he's +2 in the UK to 147, which is his mark in the national as well. He was a good winner of the Paddy Power, but he has to be a 17 pounds better horse if he's going to win the Ultima. He has his chance. He'll suit the style of race from doing the trends of it last week with Matt Toombs, isn't he'll come from off the pace. It'll be a strongly run race. Plenty of stayers in here. Personally, I'd be with Giovinco at 10-1 over Meeting of the Waters at 5s. I think at 5-1, Johnny, he represents no value in a handicap like this.
Yeah, like apart from the connections which you have to respect, I couldn't give it a prayer. I genuinely couldn't. Like as you said, it's gone up 70. Like to me, it didn't win with a horse with 17 pound in the Paddy Power chase at Leopardstown. Far from it, in fact. Like to me, he was on fumes even going to the line. I don't know. Look, you obviously have to respect the connections and you know you've jockeyed to town and everything, but he was one of the weaker favourites in the handicaps. I think he's priced more on connection than anything else. And I'd agree with you, Giovinco. I'd be going for a novice in this race too, like Giovinco or Chianti Classico. I think Chianti Classico is a very dangerous horse, but Bailey's horses started really well this year and they've gone off the boil, and they haven't been having winners, but you'd like to see him in better form. But he's a very dangerous. No, maybe Meeting the Waters proved me all wrong. I wouldn't fancy that at all anyway myself.
Okay, we have had them in this is the race Aplutar won a few years ago.
No, that's the novice
novice
handicap chase.
Chase. Okay, sorry. I was trying to show off my knowledge there. Lydia, is there one of the home team maybe?
This is isn't this the race where Ireland actually has quite a bad record? I think I'm right of saying right off the top of my head. The one race, cling on to it, everybody.
Yeah.
I think there's the third and fourth from last year have clearly got strong chances. Mogbeg Genius, who finished third in the Coral Gold Trophy. I think he's the kind of horse that should run well here. Also, we have...
Time to get up.
That's to remind me of my declaration.
For tomorrow morning.
The Goffer as well, who ran well in the Kerry National 2 starts back. Not so good last time. I've got a slightly wild one here, which is I Right, who's about 33-1 and should have won a Veterans Chase at Warwick 2 starts back. He's since had a break. He came back at the weekend. I think he's the kind of horse who runs well in this race. We've had, veterans, very exposed horses winning it before. Cloudy Dawn, is it? Of Sue Smith, And I think he's that kind of horse. He's a high class horse who's holding his form. He finished third in the race, I think, back in 2021. He's £2 lower, but he's held his form. That run at Warwick was right up to his very best. And I tend to look at the handicaps once I've actually got the decks. But at the moment, just looking at it from the long view, I thought he was a very big price.
I Right at a price. Okay, so Tony's Meeting of the Waters. I Right at a price. Giovinco.
I'll chance Chianti Classico.
Chianti Classico. Okay, grand. So disappointing news. Champion Hurdle next at Constitution Hill will not be running. It makes a freebie for State Man. Surely anybody have any objection to that statement?
Not at all. I mean, he's been in fabulous form all season. Everything has gone right. He has delivered every time without really being pushed. This season has gone so well for him, and I don't really see anything in the lineup to trouble him.
Yeah, Tony?
Yeah, just the only thing now, it'll be interesting to see what Gordon Elliott would do. Would he redirect Irish Point? Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, he's beaten all the other State Men. There's no question he's a certainty. If Irish Point doesn't, he might just juggle up the thing. I don't know. He's still in the stairs. But with Constitution Hill out, maybe they'll have another little think about it.
Yeah.
Some switch now from 3 to 2, but he's a very good horse. So
Yeah.
he's the only one I could see shaking up Stateman.
I think there needed to be soft ground. They were talking about even had Constitution Hill been able to run, potentially even running Irish Point if it was soft ground.
Okay. Any point and angle this one now, Johnny? Is he very just...
Yeah. Look, I think if this race was run in like Leopardstown, he'd be about 2 to 9. Like if he turns up 2s on it, I definitely would go for him now, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 to 1 odd. What's that saying? If you do what you always do, you get what you always get. That's a statement to me. He only has to do what he's doing all along. Even his run last year make him a cert here, and 2's on. He's a bet till the cows come home. I think anyway. To be honest,
A bet till the cows come home, Ruby.
Sounds a good idea. But if you think Paul Townend doesn't think he ran his race last year and he still finished second to Constitution Hill, like he can underperform and still win this.
yeah exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Champion Hurdle's easy this year. Okay, the Mayor's Hurdle is next. Lossiemouth is a very short price. We filmed with Patrick Mullins recently enough, and he was pretty sweet on Ashrow Diamond. Ruby.
He's probably going to ride Ashrow Diamond. 11.5. That's why he's sweet now. I would be very much in the Lossiemouth camp. I know she's level weights now, 5-year-old versus the 7-year-old in Ashrow Diamond, but from the filly I see sporadically in Willie's, I think she's improving the whole time, Lossiemouth, and I'd be very keen on her.
She's a good favourite.
Yeah.
Tony?
No need to delay this one. I'd win half the track.
Okay.
Just streets above.
Lydia, I get the feeling that the lads are a bit lazy, not looking through the...
The doubt's the trip, isn't it?
You want binoculars to look any further back than her, because they're going to be like, she's just different league. I think
She'll stay, will she?
Oh yeah, she'll do anything. She's just streets above these.
I think she's very, very good. I think she's very talented. I was really impressed with the way that the distance that she was able to come away from the field in the Bula, which was pretty steadily run, but she really dominated it towards the end. I think she looks like she's improved a great deal from her juvenile form. The vibes from the yard are extremely positive. Were this 2 miles, I would think she's home and hosed in the same way as you both do. But I do think that the trip is a doubt. I think the trip might bring her closer together with some of the other horses. And I'm thinking about the likes of Tell Me Something Girl, who was going quite well when brought down in the race 2 seasons ago. She didn't take defences. She hated that. There were signs of her steadily coming back to form. Also, her stable companion, Langtree Lady. I'm not sure what she is. We've only seen her twice. Potentially she could be very good. She certainly stays. And then there's Mary's Rock. I'd put up at a price 33's a long way in. She's won the race before. The race didn't run to suit. You know, she is getting on a bit, but she will get a bigger field here. She needs some cover. She needs a strongly run race, and she does stay further. So she has got the calibre of form, if there is a doubt about Lossiemouth, to threaten her. So I'd be with Mary's Rock.
Mary's Rock, okay.
Look, I fancy the favourite, Paddy. Saying that at the price she's 7 to 4 on roughly, and like if you equate 2 to 1 on Stateman and 4 to 7 Lossiemouth, there's like to me Stateman is a 10-star bet, where Lossiemouth is only about a 3-star. I do think it'll win. The trip is an imponderable. It is unknown at the same time, so you never know. Like every fella thinks, she'll get the trip, and them Triumph Hurdle winners have a good record and going further and all that kind of stuff, and they all stay. They'll all stay.
In my head, Triumph Hurdle horses have a bad season the following year, or is that not true anymore?
That's possible too, yeah. But she's only been like run once in a race in Cheltenham, and she's in against mares. Like she was out in open company, like winning as a 4-year-old. So she's back in against her own 6-year. Look, she should win. And like I always think they'll always stay until they don't. You know what I mean? Do you know that kind of way? So for me, it would stop me from having a major whop off her anyway now, you know.
Okay, so Lossiemouth, Marie's Rock.
Each way,
Marie's Rock.
Because I mean, I do acknowledge that she is head and shoulders above them on paper, and it's just the doubt about the stamina.
Yeah, I think Lydia is right. If it was a 2-mile race, you wouldn't need money to back her, I don't think, anyway. You know what I mean? That's basically it.
You wouldn't need money. I'd like that day when it comes.
Exactly. Okay, the Boodles is next, and Tony, this kind of refers back. Milantino's in here, and this kind of refers back to what you were talking about, the handicap stuff. And I've backed this anti-post, and so I'm a bit worried now because it's so well in on French form that it has no chance based on the record.
Yeah, he has Cheltenham form as well, you see. So he was beaten by the Sergino and the James Owens horse. Burdett Road. So, I mean, he's here now, a stone off the top. well, nearly a stone, 13 pounds off the top. And he's run in France. The two horses that beat him went on to be first and second in a Grade 1 the following month. So, I mean, that form is right up there. And his form here is right up there. So, he's trained by, I can't think of the lady's name, but...
Amanda Zetterholm.
Yeah, do that again. But she's
I'll
with
say
Tom
Noel
George.
George.
I'm Noel George. Yeah.
Noel George, yes, son of Tom George. So, you know, they've come over with a bit of success as well. So, Melantino, to me, to make it the first one to win with these funny kilos to pounds handicap rating.
Okay, Melantino. Ruby?
I think the race in Leopardstown holds the key at Christmas. When Carla Conti beat Cargeese, Batman, Girac, I think of the 10 runners in that race, or 12 runners, 10 of them were in this. I think there's a flood of money for O Patir. I thought he was eye-catching enough in that. And when you go through that race, he probably comes out pound for pound the best at the weights in this contest. Martin Brazel's runner. Batman Girac came home well. He's a bit buzzy, a bit gassy. He'll have to switch off if he's going to win a Fred Winter. But I think watching replays of that Leopardstown juvenile hurdle at Christmas, Patir was the eye catcher to me.
He is, Martin Brazel's an amazing target trainer for Cheltenham, isn't he? Like,
He
when
is.
they go over, they always go close.
There are a few trainers here that are really dangerous. Irish fellas in particular. He's one. Charles Burns will be one. Gavin Cromwell, fantastic. Of the week of the let's so it's called smaller trainer, but Gavin Cromwell isn't really a small trainer anymore. But they'd be some. Even the Bromhead, his horses, like, not alone did they run well here, they have career bests, like, for some reason, you know what I mean? So they're dangerous. That he owns the favourite as well, Sean Mulroy, that the Lark in the Morning. He's probably a dangerous horse here, but I like Melantino a bit myself. The only worry I have from him is the trip is I'd fancy him real strong if it was an extra 2 or 3 furlongs, you know what I mean? Because he's a Milan horse, he's more of a national hunt bred horse, whereas these are all flat recruits coming in here. If it was the new course, I'd fancy him even more. Yeah. And if it was an extra quarter of a mile, I'd fancy him more. But he's a good horse. He's a lovely jumper as well. He's a real sweet jumper, and that's good form. Like with the likes of Sergino and Burdett Road, and to me he's the one. Whether he'll get outpaced at a certain stage, I'm not so sure. But I'd say he's rock solid to be in the first 3 or 4 at the same time, and he'd be one for me now, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, Lydia.
I agree. The point about Melantino, I think he's a really, really good-looking horse, and I think he's definitely got a future. But again, I think the Fred Winter might just be a bit too sharp for him. I quite like Roaring Legend. Now, I do have a slight ground concern. He got beaten at Market Raisin last time, which he should really have won, and I can only really put that down to the soft ground. But the 2 runs prior to that I thought were really solid. He's got a huge amount of experience on the flat, which will help him in a race like the Fred Winter, and I suspect that Ollie Murphy will put the cheek pieces back on. So, Roaring Legend.
Roaring Legend, Melantino. What was the name of your one again?
Patir. Maybe it's pronounced differently. OSE.
Os Patir, I don't know.
Os Patir.
Okay.
Martin Brazel.
Martin Brazel's
the other one though, not the favourite.
No, the favourite's Joseph.
Lark in the
Joseph
Morning
Ryan,
is the
yeah.
Okay, that's the boodle sorted. The National Chase is the last race on Tuesday. Corbett's Cross and Embassy Gardens kind of heading the market here. Tony, is it between the two of them, do you think?
Well, it'll be a very interesting race this year. It's just been announced this morning that it's going to be now called after my late mother, the Mrs. Maureen Mullins 4-mile chase. So I'll be watching it with thoughts for her. And I suppose the favourite is Embassy Gardens. Hate horses that failed the previous year in Cheltenham. I fancied him last year as a banker and he blew out. So Corbett's Cross, hard to get a look at him. We didn't get a look at him in Fairy House when he was very unlucky to get clipped and turn over. But the talk is good on him. So, I don't know, Corbett's Cross is... Yeah, I just hate a horse that fails, so I'm against Embassy Gardens. He'll probably win half the track after saying that now, but I hate horses that fail at Cheltenham, going back to it.
Okay. Lydia?
I'm going around in circles in this race. Embassy Gardens, I love the way he's taken to fences. I think he's a really fluent jumper. However, he did go to the Albert Bartlett's last year and he did blow out. He was buzzy. He was too keen. If he behaves like that all over again, then it's going to be game over. Corbett's Cross for me is just too deliberate in terms of his jumping, even over that trip. It does bother me. And reflexively, my choice would generally be Salvador Ziggy, but he's got that the thing that happened to him in America to get over. But he seems to be heading towards the race. It seems to be the plan. So presumably Gordon Elliott and his team feel that he has recovered. But with his very strong handicap form and how well he's taken to fences and the fact that he's run it really well in festival handicaps before, he fits the absolute right profile for the race, and he's got the talent as well. So I am slightly worried about what happened to him last time, but I'm going to say Salvador Ziggy.
Salvador Ziggy. Ruby, in this race, do you need a graded horse?
Unfortunately, that's the way it now looks. I don't think the changing of the National Hunt Chase to a novice, when they changed it many years ago, people moan about too many novice chases. This is the one that I would be doing away with. I would be pushing these horses back into the Brown Advisory, and that'd push one or two into the Turners, and likewise it did fall back to the Arkle. So this is the one that I would be doing something with. I don't necessarily think it should be a novice chase, but I'd fancy Corbett's Cross. I think he ducked out in last year's Albert Bartlett, but I actually think the run over 2 miles prior to that in Naas, where he beat Founder 50, had Corbett's Cross on his toes in last year's Albert Bartlett, and he raced with the choke out. I think they've been trying to settle him all year this year and been dropping him in, and that has resulted in some deliberate jumping. But I do think he's a very good horse, and I would be with him for the very same reason as Tony. I had no excuse for Embassy Gardens last year. He was working well. He went to Cheltenham, he blew out. He's in much the same form this year, but once bitten, twice shy, is it?
Johnny, Corbett's Cross, might he have won that race last year?
No, not a prayer, I don't think. And that would be a bit of a... Like, there's a few little niggles attached to Corbett's Cross. First of all, he's got to get the trip properly. Then there's that running out bit is right. And he hasn't had an ideal prep at the same time. Like, being brought down is not surely ideal. And look, he's a very good horse, Corbett. Like, there's none of these horses could be found at 50 at 2 miles in Naas, and that's an outstanding effort. For that reason, like, okay, fellas will say he'd definitely stay, but there must be some semblance of doubt that he won't get 3 mile and 6. I agree with Lydia that his jumping is a bit deliberate, but I do think he's the best horse in the race. And I could see him pooping away and coming between the last two, and he will have too much class for the likes of Embassy Gardens, I think, and Salvador Ziggy. But he doesn't come without risks at the same time, and he's into like 9 to 4 stuff. He's not exactly a giveaway. I'd favour him, but I wouldn't be having him as a real strong selection at the same time.
Okay, so Corbett's Cross, Salvador Ziggy,
Corbett's Cross,
Corbett's Cross. Grant, that is Tuesday. But before we go and take a very quick break, we're going to get our Tuesday naps. So one horse, or it could be a double, treble, doesn't matter what it is. Tony, start with you.
Oh,
and we told you before we're going to do this, by the way.
You're hitting me very quick. But Ballyburn is a certainty. Yeah.
Ballyburn.
Founder 50.
Founder 50.
I'll go Milantino.
Milantino.
Yeah, I have to go odds again, so I'm going Corbett's Cross.
And Corbett's Cross. Okay, perfect. That'll do. We'll see you back in a minute.
Hi, I didn't think you lads would turn up this year.
Because everyone knows Cheltenham's our patch. The last time you had a winner here, you still had an economy.
We were too busy trying to win a proper tournament. Yes, mate.
River dancers.
Queue lovers, stew eaters, penalty chokers, potato munchers!
It's embarrassing.
We're just having a bit of crack here.
Sorry.
Whoever you're backing, this Cheltenham we're giving away more free bets than ever before. Paddy Power.
Welcome back. Well, no messing. We're going to go straight into day 2, and day 2 begins with the Bearing Bingham. Is Bearing Bingham a person or a...
Yeah, he bought Cheltenham.
Bought? Okay.
Bought Prestbury Park.
And then gave it to...
I don't know what happened to him then, but he bought Prestbury Park.
He bought Prestbury Park. Fair play to him. The Bearing Bingham, anyway, he's got a hurdle race on, I presume it was him, on the Wednesday first race. Ruby, bit of deja vu here, but we're going to start the way we started day 1. Like, what's going on here with the Willie Mullins runners? Do we know?
No, we don't. But again, it boils back to whatever, I suppose, ultimately what Paul and Willie will decide. But look, I can probably see Ballyburn coming here. So I'd be with him. I think he'll win whichever race. We've said that already. Eid Atlantic, I would think Slade Steele is a massive runner here. I've liked him all year. He chased home. Ballyburn at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he beat Lecky Watson in Naas. He beat King of Kingsfield in a maiden hurdle. He was behind Tully or Ballyburn and Dancing City in a bumper, but I think he's a fair horse, Slade Steele. And look, if Ballyburn goes 2 miles, I think Slade Steele's a big runner here.
Okay, because I was actually going to ask that question. Like, are we just ignoring everybody as Willie Mullins have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth? But
No,
obviously, maybe not.
I'm not so sure. Il Atlantique he's a very good horse, Il Atlantique, but he's been second more often than he's managed to win races.
Might he be ridden differently?
Probably be ridden differently.
Had
But
to take a lead, you mean?
yeah, but I just think with Tully Hill, you can say, well, he's jumping, and his jumping has improved, and he's starting to win races.
Still
Il
not that good.
Atlantique's jumping is not going to improve. And you start making excuses for horses. And I just prefer, granted when you get into open company, but at novice company and in bumpers, if you're on the best horse, you should be winning.
Barring accidents.
Yeah, and he's just got beaten too often, not at the top level.
Okay, so you reckon good chance Ballyburn goes here and he wins, and if not,
I think so,
Slade-
if not Slade Steele. Yeah.
Slade Steele. Tony, you've already put up Ballyburn for the Supremes. You can't do that. So.
Yeah, I can't do that now. And I think Mystical Power, if he's going to avoid JP de Repenay, he's the horse here. I'm a great believer in never going away from a horse until he's beaten. This has never been beaten. He's bred absolutely impeccably. And from what we hear in Close Sutton, that he's improving all the time. So horse going forward that's never been beaten for me is the one.
It's not a bad way to put it. Yeah. Johnny, can you have an angle on this one yet, or?
Well, it all depends on whether Ballyburn turns up here. But if he didn't turn up, it's and I agree with what Lydia said about earlier on. She said about the head down low, that stuff that he does. I think that's a bit of a worry at the longer distance. And I know the jockey says it doesn't affect him, but I'd say the trainer will look at that and say, I'm not so sure now. You know what I mean? And I think if that kind of messing that he does, what he say, I know it doesn't seem to detract from his performance, but still, it is a small concern the further you go. I think it's an open race. If he's not running, Slade Steele has a good chance. Il Atlantique to me has been in 3 dogfights and lost the 3 of them. I wouldn't fancy him in a struggle, and you have to struggle normally to win these kind of races. Like he has been in, even the last 10 days, I mean, he's come to the last, you'd say he's going to win. He jumps it clean, the other horse makes a mistake, gets a length and a half, and still manages to get beat. To me, that wasn't the performance of a horse that should win this Super Orders, Son-in-Law, the old Son-in-Law, whatever you like to call it, Bearing Bingham. That Slade Steele is a good horse, he's a solid horse, but then he's been beaten 7 lengths by Ballyburn, and even in the bumper he's well beaten by him. So, like, is he good enough to win a race like this? Maybe he is, because I was giving Predators Gold a chance and he's been beaten twice. So, look, it's quite an open race. Slade Steele, I wouldn't be mad on Il Atlantique, and to be honest, I don't fancy him that much. And I'd go maybe Slade Steele or maybe Predators Gold each way. That's probably the one I'd go for in the finish.
Okay. Lydia, just on that, the Ballyburn thing, is that the horse might use up his energy because he's pulling too hard?
Yeah, I think so. At that trip, if it ends up being a steadily run race as well. I mean, I just think the Supreme is absolutely ideal for him. I know that Henry de Bromhead wants to avoid Ballyburn if he can. I wouldn't think that Slade Steele will have much of a chance, and the Supreme would have a bit more of a chance here. I wonder whether there might be something a bit quicker, though, and I wonder whether that might be Mystical Power if they decide to step him up in trip. His jumping isn't good, but it's better than Tully Hill's, which I think is very much holds him back. But I can see the race setting up to suit Mystical Power here, so I think I might see him as potentially being able to beat Slade Steele, who I'm a big fan of. Il Atlantique, I share those concerns. I wonder whether he needs to be ridden differently and delivered late, and Cheltenham is probably not his place for that reason. And I'm interested in President's Gold as well. I thought that he had a shout at a big price. He didn't stay and pulled too hard over the longer trip in the Nathaniel Lacey. I think coming back down to this kind of trip, he chased home Caldwell Potter. He was the only horse to try and give him a race in that race that he dominated over Christmas, and that is the second best novice hurdle form around. And I could see that Predator's Gold might go off at a price that is a bit too big for what his ability actually is.
Okay, so Predator's Gold.
No, Mythical Power. Mythical Power is the win, but I'm just
okay.
amplifying what Johnny was saying. I agree with it. I can see him winning a big race.
Yeah.
Well, if Predator's Gold runs well, that gives me a certainty for the following day, so we'll get that later. Mystical City.
Mystical City.
Mystical Power, even.
Power,
Yeah.
What is it with that horse? Willie got his name wrong as well.
What did Willie call him? Mythical Willie was calling him.
Yeah.
He does exist, Willie. Mystical.
Ballyburn.
I would worry Mystical Power be too keen.
Okay.
I think Mystical Power would be a harder ride in this race than Ballyburn myself.
Okay.
Okay.
So I am going
Ballyburn if he goes,
and
and
Slade Steele
if he doesn't, and
I'll go Predators goal each way.
Predators goal each way. Grand. Perfect. Okay, that's the Bearing Bingham done. And thank you very much for buying Cheltenham, Mr. Bingham. Right, the Brown advisory is next. Tony, I'll start with you. Factor file. Is this a very short conversation?
Very short. This is the new champion. I think he'd actually beat Gallopin Deschamps in the Gold Cup. This is the new champion. JP has never owned one like this, and he owned this to back on a lot of good horses. This is out of this world, this horse.
Okay.
No questions about his jumping, no questions about him staying, no questions about nothing. He'll do a lassie mouth on it, he'll win half the track.
Okay, Lydia.
If the Brown advisory was a time trial, I'd agree, because clearly the way in which he dispensed with Gaelic Warrior, albeit that horse underperformed, was a high quality performance.
Are you sure that he did underperform?
Who, Gaelic Warrior? Yeah, I think the two things coexist in my head. That Factor File did put up a hugely substantial performance on the clock. You can see that when you contrast it against the course and distance handicap, and at the same time Gaelic Warrior underperformed. Yeah, I think I can hold the two things in my head.
Yeah, I just don't believe he underperformed. I just think your man annihilated him, and it's an awful pity there wasn't 2 or 3 more runners to show how superior this horse is.
I mean, I'm not arguing with that performance. I do think it was extremely good, but I just feel that he is a very, very short price, and he is being anointed as the next coming before he's actually had to prove it in a competitive race. And those are the kind of horses I tend to want to field against. He does go out to his right. You know, if you start, and when you're sort of looking at horses that are that kind of price, you start looking at that kind of thing. He was hanging in the bumper. You start looking at that as well. When he ran second in the bumper last year, there are things that you start picking at that kind of price about. So I think there are 2 very substantial British horses running here. One of them is Stay Away Faye, who's taken on more experienced horses and acquitted himself with great credit. It's possible that he lacks a gear. It's possible, but he's still got a very high standard of form, and he will be finishing up the hill. And I don't think he was suited by a steadily run Cotswold Chase last time. I think he got outpaced and then started staying on. He could do with an end-to-end gallop, and I think he'd run well. But the horse I'm going to put up is actually Grey Dawning. I know that Dan Skelton is thinking about potentially running in the Turners. I'd rather see him run in the Brown Advisory. I think he is a thorough stayer, an excellent jumper. He handles the track, and there's potential. I mean, I think the Factor File hype will continue, and he will go off a very short price, and I'll be looking at something against him. I want to see it happen in an actual competitive race rather than a time trial.
Okay. Factor File, too short?
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of Lydia said there. Big hype horse. Now, you can't ignore the big stables coming and singing one from the rooftops. I mean, if they have so much trial tackle and they have so many good horses, would they come out and more or less say that he is the second coming? You have to sit up and take notice from a point of view. Of course you do. But he hasn't done, really, to be honest. To me, he's won a no race novice chase, and it was a 2-horse race where one pulled up three fences out the last day. I don't believe for a minute that Gaelic Warrior even the way he came to the last fell out over his head. He'd know where he was at the same time. That wasn't his performance. He wasn't able to get away from him like the way he was doing in other chases. Excuse me. And look, he's very sharp price, Factor File now. I'm not going to back him. Saying that, I don't fancy Stay Away Faye. I don't fancy that at all in this race anyway. Grey Dawning will beat him if he turns up here. I think he will. And I actually think Monty Star will beat him as well. To me, Stay Away Faye lacks, as Lydia said, lacks the gear. I think he lacks a bit of class. When he won in Exeter, both Grey Dawning and even the changing man looked like beating him coming up that straight. And the last day, one day in Sandown, Giovinco doing half speed against him going to the last. I know he stays well and all that, but he definitely, to me, is going to be vulnerable to a horse with a bit of class. And I would just say Grey Dawning didn't run if he goes for 2.5 mile race and you were betting without the favourite. I would have a whopper off Monty Star without Factor File. It's very hard to back against Factor File the way people are talking at the same time. You kind of have to respect that stuff, but I couldn't actually back him myself at even money.
Also, I think this is a good race. I think you've just outlined why this is a good race. So, I mean, he's very short in that context.
Settle this for us, Ruby.
Everything about Factor File suggests that he should be, could be, and probably will be better at this trip, Paddy, than he has been at the distances he's running over. I rode him at home, and to even think he could be as fast as he is surprising. He does ride like an absolute stair. I think Broadway Boy is the key to the rest, though. I think if he runs the way he's ridden, it'll be a massive help to Stay Away Faye. I think without Broadway Boy, it makes it a hard race for Stay Away Faye to win, because there's no other real front runner that can bring them far enough. It's grand, there's something to go along for, get you to halfway, but Stay Away Faye needs something of Broadway Boy's ability to bring them to the third last fence before he has to take it off him. So I think if Broadway Boy runs, he adds to it for Stay Away Faye. But just from watching Factor File and having sat in him only once, yeah, he could be Everton. He's the potential to be Everton, Tony said he is. I don't think he's quite there yet like Tony does, but he has the potential.
I have a friend who's very good on times, and we bought some lovely horses out of buying on times, and he says this lad just broke his clock.
He's absolutely right.
Yeah, he is right.
He said, and we're not talking about time from start to finish. We're talking about the section of times in the middle.
Absolutely.
That what this lad has done at Christmas.
Second fence away from the stands. From there, at the DRF, all the way to across the road, which is the middle section of the race, which shouldn't be the quickest section of any race, was really quick at the DRF. And to watch him at home, he would surprise you that he can do that speed. And
that's why Gaelic Warrior underperformed, because it was like me being in a ring with Muhammad Ali. It just boxed the head off him. So
okay, so Factor File. I think we're pretty sure you're on Factor File here.
Grey Dawning.
Grey Dawning.
I'll go Monty Star without Factor File if I can.
So totally respecting Factor File, but don't want to back him at a short price.
No, and a small bit of disrespect towards Stay Away Faye, if you like to call it that word. Yeah.
I've ridden enough of horses and got enough of falls to know there's no way I'd back one in a Grade 1 novice chase at 4-5, but I think he's the most likely winner.
Okay, Factor File. Okay, Grant. Perfect. Coral Cup is next. Ruby, you get a pass here because you never won the race.
That's right.
Useless, Ruby, wasn't he?
I'd say if he gave me 28 goals and I would lead one up, I wouldn't even pick the right one to lead up.
yeah, Grant. Johnny, you're off the hook as well. Lydia, will we start with you in the Coral Cup?
I quite like Doddy the Great. I know he's also in the Martin Pipe, so I'd have to. It depends on where he might go. I'd be interested probably in either of them. I thought he ran really well, went fourth in the Betfair Hurdle, came from quite a long way back, had some traffic problems in the straight as well. I think we saw him run really well at Cheltenham the time before. We know he handles the track, and he shapes as though he needs to step back up in trips. So Doddy the Great for me.
And he's going to battle hard, isn't he, for these mad handicaps?
I think he's battle hardened enough. Yeah. I mean, the run in the Betfair Hurdle, he wasn't at the back because he couldn't handle it. He was at the back because those were the tactics.
Yeah. Okay, Tony, anything here?
Maybe Brazil, who thrown up a surprise last year, was it, or the year before? And might do it again, but I have no real opinion on this.
That's fine. Doddy the Great.
Need to work it out.
Is the panel's tip is Doddy the Great. Thanks, Lydia.
Sorry, everybody.
Jeez, it's okay if it wins. It wins. Right, Champion Chase is next. Il Fabiola is. I know it's weird. It's hard to see in my own. It's hard to see Il Fabiola beaten, but it just feels like it's hard to back him at 1-2.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite short. Chases around here, like two's on, it's short. Yeah. I don't always go for a hurdle anyway over a chaser at them kind of odds anyway. Look, it's saying that he's becoming a more complete animal. His jumping he looks less likely every day when he comes out to make a blunder, and his jumping is up there with, like you'd have said at the start of the year, maybe that John Bond might be able to force a mistake out of him. It's nearly the other way around now, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, like for that reason, Edwardstone will go off quick. He's probably has some sort of a chance, Edwardstone, but unlikely at the same time. But he will pressurise the jumping of the ones behind him at the very least. And I know King said that he may not use those tactics again. I think that's about the only chance he has anyway, to be honest. And if he doesn't use it, I'd be surprised. I favour the favourite, but again, I wouldn't say it's a cert or anything like it now, to be honest,
Yeah. I'm guessing you loved riding good 2 mile chasers.
Good 2 mile chase was a great trail, but riding an ordinary one in a real good 2 mile chase was a horrible experience. So they were quite contrasting. But look, Il Fabiola, again, I'd be a little bit with Johnny. I think he's very short. He's 4-9 where I'm looking right now. That's ridiculously short. And I do think Edwardstone will go forward. I think Gentleman to Me possibly would go with him. I can't even see 8 runners here. I can see 6, 7, maybe 8. I can't quite get 8. And I know you're going to lose if he doesn't win, but to save some of your stake, I can't see John Bond being out of the first 3. And if Il Fabiolo, who can miss one, does miss one, I think from a betting point of view, John Bon each way, you're saving a good bit of your stake at 3-1, getting it back if he finishes in the first 3. And if something happens Il Fabiolo, you're getting a touch. I just think from a betting point of view, he's a better bet.
Did you see the video, and it was up on Twitter or something, of him jumping, and they said the lovely John Bon jumping, and he burst in fences out. Whoever put the caption with that, like he went to the butt of them and pulled him up with his front. Did you see that?
No, I didn't actually know.
I just think the harder they go, the better he'll jump.
I agree with that, but I just thought it was so funny to see him bursting fences out with this, and then John Bon does beautiful school in morning.
Yeah, and again, you're going with one of Nicky's now with the question marks, but I just think that you're getting each way the first 3 at the minute. You're not going to get that next week. And I think with Nico back on him, Edward Stone on the front end, it's going to be a stamina contest. I really can't see him out of the 3.
So, Tony, I'm taking you're not agreeing about John Bon.
Oh no, what I saw on the video the other day anyway, he's not in the right frame of mind at the moment. And I'm just hoping, I hope El Fabiolo wins for Willie, but Edward Stone is a formidable horse. He's getting old now, but I don't know, he's the only one I can see there that will give him a run, and just hope El Fabiolo should win, but Edward Stone for me a bit of value.
Okay, Lydia?
Well, Edwardson, I think they have to go forward with him because he looks as though he was back in love with the whole thing at Newbury. If anything, going a bit too gassily. I imagine he'll be more controllable, I think, as a result of having had that experience, but I do think they do have to go forward. When they're going at that pace, that could force a chance-ending error. I think El Fabiolo, I agree with Johnny, seems less and less. He's never looked likely to fall, and he also seems less likely these days to be making an error. But he's still not a comfortable watch as you're watching him as a champion chaser. I think he's by far the most likely winner. I think John Bon is a bit too hesitant a jumper. I do think Nico de Boinville being back on will be a positive for him because he got him jumping beautifully earlier in the season. In the end, I'm boringly with El Fabiolo, but generally from a betting point of view, stepping right away from the race.
Should we mention now, you kind of touched on it there, the Henderson stable form in inverted commas. Is that a big issue? Like, I know Johnny the Great as well as Nicky Henderson.
Yeah,
it's happened 100 times though.
Yeah.
Nicky Henderson's been out of form a heap of times, 21 days out from Cheltenham, and then into Cheltenham, and he's walking up the centre of the ring every time.
Yeah.
He had a winner at the weekend. He had a spate of horses that were pulled up and ran below form prior to that, and one winner within that sort of fortnight margin. Again, you're talking about him being a trainer who he turns up, doesn't he, generally at the festival.
When you have Nicky Henderson bet, you're a long way on to winning.
A lot. I mean, it'll be. A lot, I think, for the rest of the week hinges on how well Jericho de Repene runs.
I was going to say, if you really fancy that one, then you're going to go, the first race.
Well, you're going to have to just make your own mind up, aren't you? But that is going to give you a signal. Yeah,
okay, fair enough. We move on to the cross country. This kind of interesting enough, Ruby, this year. It's turned into over the last number of years where you get some really classy horses tend to finish well ahead of everything else, right?
Exactly, and I think when you look at the age profile of some of these horses, like Manila Indo 11, Delta Work 11, Galvin is 10, I can understand the absolute merits of the race. Personally, I would love it to be a limited handicap. Yes. I think you'd give the older horses a chance, but also give those down at the bottom some bit of a concession. I don't want it as an open handicap, but I think a stone weight range would make it a more interesting race, and even a little bit more, £18 maybe, but that's neither here nor there. As long as it keeps drying, I think Galvin will run a good race. Now, I know the infield, the cross-country course, is wetter than the main track. There's no schooling allowed this year at all, so it'll probably take longer to dry, considering the main track drains into the cross-country course. So it'll take a bit longer to dry. I was enthusiastic about Manila Indo behind Nate Light Pass. He ran really well, but he's no value now at 7-4. I was hoping Conflated would run, but Johnny told me the other night that he's going to the Ryanair. I just thought his runs in Grade 1 races were head and shoulders above what was going on around him. But I think if it keeps drying, Delta Work. If it doesn't dry, Cocoa Beach.
Okay. Johnny?
Yeah, Manila Indo's gone into a short price now, like under 2-1. I thought Galvin ran well in Navan, but I know Davy Russell rode him last year, and he said that on the inside part of it, when it was quite dry. When he came out at the end of the race, when the ground was really bad, he really struggled. So when the ground is going to be really bad on the inside, he's going to be in there half the day now this time. So he surely will struggle now, I'd have thought. But he did run well in Navan. So for me, it's probably down between Minelindo and probably Delta Work, who's probably just trained specifically for this race. And they're the two horses. I know they're the first two in the betting, but I think they'll probably fight it out now, to be honest.
It's kind of become that race, Tony, hasn't it? It's like not as open as, to Ruby's point, not as open as it used to be, because you get the proper graded horses.
Yeah, and I don't know, is it right to have them there? But then maybe they're entitled to be there. I'm just going to go here for Foxy Jacks, as Mouse always has something for Cheltenham. And, you know, it's a funny race. It's amazing. They canter around slowly inside, messing over these different fences, and then sprint up the straight. It's, you know, I think if a jockey had the guts to jump out and make it and go the whole way on a horse, obviously, that jumps well and does all the things in front. But it's been a very messy race a couple of years there, walking around the centre of the track and then sprinting up along. So it's not a race I particularly like.
Foxy Jacks.
Foxy Jacks for a bit of value.
Manelindo,
I think so, but just about Minelindo, yeah. There's no value now at 7-4 at the same time.
And you said Delta Work and Cocoa Beach, was it?
Cocoa Beach or Galvin, waiting
Galvin,
until
Cocoa
next
Beach.
Wednesday to see what the ground is like.
Grand, okay.
Or Wednesday week even.
Ground's obviously very important for the next round. The highlight for everybody is the Grand Annual.
I don't fancy folks tiara.
I've got a share in the folks tiara.
All right, yeah.
But all we need is about 11 to come out and the ground to be good. So we'll be grand. We'll be fine. But anyway, I'm going there with fingers crossed and everything crossed. Lydia, Grand Annual.
I've got
Unpick this.
2 against the field. From Sanoir's very first race this season, I thought, that's the Grand Annual horse. So he has been performing along those lines all the way through the season. We know he's a festival winner. He's won the county. He's capable at that kind of level. So Sanoir for me. The other one I'm quite interested in is Liberty Hunter, who beat Matata early in the season in January. He's a horse that just does enough. I think he's very hard for the handicapper to get a hold of. And there, I think that Adam Wedge was quite careful to make sure that he only just did enough. He will handle soft ground. He's a novice, but I don't mind that in the Grand Annual. And certainly the two of them probably have different... I mean, I'd prefer Sanoir on a bit sounder surface, but Liberty Hunter deals with the sort of soft ground, which I'm expecting it to be at the softer end, given we've had such a wet winter.
Okay. Ruby?
I just think since it's moved to the old course, it definitely suits horses that race much closer to the pace now. First 3 home last year were never out of the first 5, maybe, with Massacada being 5th at one point in the race. So St. Roy would probably need to be ridden a little bit more forward than he usually is. And I think Frero Bamboo, who's 3 pounds lower than he's run at the December Gold Cup when he didn't stay, will be on the pace and give you a run for your money.
Ferrero Bamboo. Johnny?
Yeah, look, it's obviously it's an open race. I'm going to take a chance with Pat Deroux, Gavin Cromwell. He's an unexposed novice. He's never won a race. He's a maiden over fences, but he was a good hurdle horse, and he's coming in here the back of. He was second to that in Sophie Leach Madara at the Dublin Race Festival. Had a fall, was knocked down at the last by your horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the plan. That was the plan all along.
Yeah. She wasn't leaving him through anyway. And then had a confidence booster. Look, Gavin Cromwell is a dangerous animal at this meeting, I think, anyway. Wins with horses that you wouldn't really expect. And his jumping needs to tighten, but on just maybe on one day, if he got it right, I could see him having a big say. I'd actually back him win only, to be honest. I wouldn't even back him each way, because I'd feel he'd either completely blow out and hit every fence in the course. But if he got into a rhythm, I think he'd have a great chance.
Okay, so Pat Deroux, Ferrero Bamboo.
Each way.
Each way.
I'll say Liberty Hunter because he's a bigger price than
Liberty Hunter, okay. And Tony, you get a pass for this one. Perfect. The bumper, Jeepers, I'm thinking the bumper this year is very hard to unpick, isn't it?
Very open.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. No, you go.
I do think so. I don't think anyone could have a solid opinion. Like, there's too many horses coming here with the back of just 1 run and 2 runs. It's impossible to put the form together, I think. Anyway, like, you have 3 horses from Elliott's. You probably have 4 or 5 from Mullins, maybe. You know what I mean? And I'd say no one even has a clue. They just bang them out and hope for the best. And then you have other fellas then as well running, like, that have chances as well. It to me, is when I was making a book in Cheltenham, is the one race you'll really look forward to. Really, really look forward. You couldn't wait for the bumper to start. Yeah. And you couldn't wait to get going. And you slaughter horses. You take your chances that you'd get a hairy Molly or a Q card or something like that could come up and save you. No, I had some bad races too, Dunguib and those things. But basically, you always felt you had a better than average chance of getting a wangaroo, I call it. Like, so, yeah. So
So it's Harry, Molly, or Wangaroo, yeah?
One of them, yeah, and Q card, yeah. You're looking down at the card and says, who's that Q card? What's that thing in blue? You know, come on, you little daisy. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So, look, but I do think it's an open race. If I'd go with Cantico maybe. I'd a horse that could have a chance. Looks to be a strong stayer, and if I was forced to pick one, that's the one I'd go for. But it'd be a very small stake, though.
Yeah. We get the feeling, Ruby, that there's nothing outstanding in the Mullins yard this year. There's normally a clear best bumper horse, right?
Well, myself and David didn't think we had one. Casey and Willie informed us last week he's that mean now he could have his own division. But look, the favourite is Jalan Dudari. That would be a change attack with Chigginstown. Ordinarily, they didn't run many bumper horses in Cheltenham.
No.
So maybe he's going, I don't know. If I was going for one of Willie's, I would actually go for the other one of Greg and Audrey Turley's. I'd go with Argento Boy. A horse he beat at Gavin Cromwell's was placed in a maiden hurl at the weekend, but he definitely surprised me when he won at Fairyhouse. He's the same pedigree as Briar Hill, who was a 25-1 winner of this race. He shows nothing at home, but he showed plenty in Fairyhouse, and I just like his attitude.
Okay. Durant and Tony, any you hear the grass grow, right? Any sneaky stuff?
Not really. I just heard Argento Boy as well. But I mean, in saying that very weakly, I mean, it's funny when you go over to Willie's there and all these horses are passing you. And yes, he'll win. Yeah, he'll win. It's about 5 different riders, and they're all riding the 5 bumper horses, and they're all telling you their horse is going to win. So, I mean, I don't think they know at this stage. Horses change a lot at this stage, and usually when Willie has the real one over the years, he was identified a long way out. So I would say whichever is the toughest improver, and I just love Jukebox Jury as a sire, so go for Argento Boy.
Okay, so Argento Boy. Sounds like it's unanimous, but it's actually
it's not. It's
tentative enough.
It's 20-1 where I'm looking right here now. Cantico's 14s. Like, I just think that when a lot of these have done enough for running, this fella'll still be galloping.
Okay, and Cantico for you.
I'll go Cantico, yeah.
Grand, perfect. Okay, that's day 2, done and dusted except for the naps. So Tony, we're going to ask for a nap in a minute. Ruby, we'll start with you.
Surely because he's 20-1, I'm going to go, not a nap, but I think Argento Boy 20-1 each way in the bumper.
Jeez, maybe not as tentative as I thought.
It's probably getting 4. We get 3 places now, would you?
I'd say it.
You get 4 in the
you get 4 in the day. You could even get 5. And 20 runners, I'd say.
On the day, like, I think you're not going with 21 on the day, but I think at that kind of a bet.
Okay.
I'll go on Monty Star without the favourite in the Brown Advisory. I'll chance him.
Okay. Lydia?
I'm tossing it between Doddy the Great and Liberty Hunter. I shall go Doddy the Great.
Doddy the Great and Tony?
I shall factor file. Lads, I don't care about the price now. Just follow this horse. He's the new kid on the block. This is the champion. Just be on him from an early stage and get a lot of enjoyment watching this lad for the next couple of years.
I'm feeling very protective about galloping to Shom all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Very protective.
Factor 5 or 2. That's great. That's brilliant. We should be back with day 3 in a minute.
Got the big man to score first.
And off goes the big man.
Oh, chin up. With Paddy's Super Sub, your bet rolls over to the player coming on. So now all subs are super.
Siwina Aussie Sub Dog.
New Super Sub from Paddy Power.
Oh, the super sub. No, you won't.
Welcome back. We are now officially halfway through the week and we're moving on to day 3. And day 3 opens up with the Turners Novice Chase over 2.5 miles. It looks like the UK have a decent chance in this one, Lydia. So we start with you.
Yeah, definitely with Ginny's Destiny, but this race becomes a very different race depending on what Willie Mullins does. He's got 2 potential runners, Facile Viga, who, like I said earlier, I think this would be the ideal race for him. But I also couldn't discount Gaelic Warrior because I think the new course will suit him much better than the old course did, that he's run over twice and still managed to finish second despite adjusting to his right in the Fred Winter 2 seasons ago, the Bearing Bingham last season. I don't think he was at his best at the DRF last time. I think he was agitated beforehand, keen to post. I do think he was then brushed aside in the race by Factor File, but nonetheless, I don't think that Gaelic Warrior turned up. And prior to that, if you look at how he won at Limerick and the time before where he just powered through against much inferior horses, if if he's going to run well at Cheltenham, I could see it being in the Turners. And they bring an entirely different level of quality, he and Facile Vega, to the race. Ginny's Destiny is easy to dismiss as just a handicap who has improved all the time. I don't think we've seen what the summit of him is yet. I think he has more quality. He's certainly more straightforward than Stage Star, who won the race last year with a similar type profile. And I think he finds plenty. And his jumping is an incredible asset. But is he quite as classy as either of those two? I'm not quite so sure. I'm going to be quite price sensitive on this race, I think. I'm going to have a look at what turns up. And if they're both Willie Mullins turns up, which one does Paul Townend ride? And again, I'm going to give that some thought. So that's how I'm thinking. That sort of gives an outline I'm thinking, but I'm not prepared to say which way I'm going at this stage, because I think it all changes depending on who actually turns up there.
Okay, so
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But not really any clearer though.
Well, I mean, I think if I was having to pick a horse right now, it'd be Facile Vega.
Yeah.
But if Paul Townend rode Facile
Warrior.
Vega and Gaelic Warrior is a very big price, I might have a different point of view. If only one of them turns up and Ginny's Destiny ends up, and that horse ends up being backed and Ginny's Destiny ends up being a big price, I might have a different point of view. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, get a bit of value.
I hope that makes sense.
That does make sense, don't worry,
Okay.
when he's slagging you.
Right.
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Dan Skelton here, Grey Dawning, well, if he's of the opinion that get mixed up here, found that Factifile is a certainty, so there's no point in him going for the other, so he must come back here, and Grey Dawning, to me, it'd be the horse if he comes back here. And Dan, if you're listening, you're just not going to beat Factifile, so you might as well come back here. And those stupid people that say that never be afraid of one horse, or should be afraid of one horse. If he's 2 stone better than you, you have to be afraid of him. So,
Grey Dawning.
Grey Dawning for me.
Right. I was quite liking Grey Dawning as well. Ruby, am I mad?
No, you're not mad, no. Definitely not mad. I think it's an interesting race. I definitely won't fall down if both Factifile and Gaelic Warrior run here. I think they're both... Facile Vega, I mean. I think they're both probably 2.5 mile horses, so I could see both of them running here, and I don't envy Paul Townend. Which one do you pick? Both disappointed the last day. Both potentially have the ability to win the race, but which one of them is actually going to do it on the day? So that'll be a tricky call for him, and it will result in one, as Lydia said, being a better price because Paul Townend can't split himself in half and ride the two of them. So
I'd say at this stage it's going to be a toss of a coin choice for him.
It'll be a difficult one. It definitely will be a difficult one. The one I thought was interesting, but I think Gordon is hinting about entering him in the Brown Advisories, American Mike. I thought he jumped like a 2.5 miler in Navan. I thought he travelled like a 2.5 miler. I know he got home, but to me, it was pure ability got him home in front of Nick or Rocket more so than stamina. I thought he'd be interested here at a big price, but he's not going to run. And again, if I got the right vibes for Oroco, he's probably the one I would be going with. I was really impressed with him in Warwick when he won, and I think if they were sweeting him, I think he's the classiest horse in it.
Oroco.
The classiest horse in it.
Just threw that in at the end there, yeah.
I think he has some engine.
Yeah.
I do.
Interesting. Johnny?
Yeah, look, it's going to be a deep race. I think Ginny's Destiny, bringing, as you said there, bringing handicap form in here. But he's a good, tough horse. I don't fancy him. But if he gets to the second last in front and they haven't passed him by then, he's guaranteed 2 clean jumps and he's guaranteed to stay at it as well. If I was riding in this race, like as a jockey, I would be putting him away before the second last if I could. If I was on a horse that was able anyway, I wouldn't leave him have a chance to, because I think if you pass him and go a length in front of him, he won't come back at you. But if you leave him jump to second last, maybe a length in front, and he could nick a length and a half at both at last. He could be hard to catch. I'm saying that I don't.
What happens when you chin him going to the second last? Right, you jump to third last. You think I'm not going to let him lead now, so you take it off him off the bend.
Yes.
You jump to second last, get a bit empty going to the last, and something else powers down your outside.
Yeah, well, I take my chances though.
Oh, jeez.
Save the companion.
I take my chances.
You go too soon to beat Janie's Destiny over winning the race.
But there don't be too many coming behind it all. I don't think anyway. I like if you look at the replays the race.
You last long riding for Willie Mullins if that happened.
Yeah, I know, but 9 out of 10 horses that jump the last obstacle at Cheltenham would win.
Yeah,
Same time. Like fellas are doting thinking the horses are going to catch them up the hill.
Jumping that last obstacle can be hard, though.
Yeah, I know, but you have to have the horse, obviously. But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't be sitting in behind him, like stalking him. I'd be going after him and make. I think Iroko has a bit of a chance. He's coming in a bad prep. I like Grey Dawning myself.
Okay.
If he does run here, I think he'll probably win.
Okay, so Grey Dawning, Iroko, or American Mike.
The vibes are good for Iroko. American Mike's probably not going to go there, but I think this is a very open novice chase.
Like, no comment.
Well, Facile Vega, but be price sensitive.
100%. I could totally get you. And
I say Grey Dawning, isn't it?
Grey Dawning, yeah.
If Dan Skelton's listening.
Dan Skelton, he's probably been onto you there already. Grand. That was what race? That was the first race of day 3, jeepers. We're into the Pertemps next, so I'm going to stick to you lads on my right for this.
I'll be shouting for Gay Cool, Dad's mare. I think her style of running will suit the race. She'll be coming from off the pace, she'll be coming home, she'll definitely get the trip. Whether the handicapper has her now and she has enough of her sleeve to win, that's quite possible, but I think she'll run in the money in the way she'll be ridden. I think she's a great bet each way, and plenty of clever people have put up Gabby's Cross to me against his chase mark. He qualified in Punchestown when Jody Ted beat him. Didn't get a great run that day, so Gabby's Cross potentially against Gay Cool.
Okay. Johnny, this strikes me as a type of race, because it's on the new course probably, it's much longer running, that it's not as, you don't need as much luck as you need like in the Coral Cup or something, do you know what I mean?
No, but you can probably come from the back. I actually watched the race with a pal of ours last year, and just watching the balcony, he said he watched his back, and back, and he said he back, good time, Johnny. So when you're watching Good Time, Johnny, I couldn't say that. It was just going to shame itself. It was belting fences, the hurdles and everything, rooting them out, do you know what I mean? And next thing, suddenly it starts to close, and it must have been like 20 horses in front of it off the bend even. But maybe about 50 yards from that, you could see the race was over, just doing 100 mile an hour. So it's a funny race, this now. I don't know. It's a bookies race. I always thought it was a bookies race. You always had a chance in this. Look, again, for a small stake, I might go Chantry House. He's probably dropped back to her. He's probably an oldish horse too at the same time. He only has a chance, like in each way a chance. It'd be a speculative bet for me, but I think I'd go that way.
Okay, so Chantry House, Gay Cool,
yeah.
And
you didn't go to as good a school as.
Tony thinks I did. And then Gabby's Cross, maybe. Yeah, for all the shooties, tipping that one up. Okay, Grant, we're on to the Ryanair next. Banbridge is a pretty short price. Well, no, it's not a short price favourite, but he's a clear favourite here. And it's followed by Envoy Allen. Johnny, is this Banbridge? Did we not talk about Banbridge almost annually?
Yeah, well, he's ground dependent, obviously. It's like there's not many horses pulled out on the day, like at the Cheltenham Festival, and he was one. So I know they were intimated that was going to happen, and it's a possibility again this year. I'm sure they may keep him for entry. Who knows? Good horse though, and an underestimated horse, I think, at the same time. I think beating Pictory in Kempton, that's good form. Like Pictory, if he was running here, and like he's probably not an undulating track horse, but he is a good horse, Pictory. Envoy Allen is a good chance. Won it last year, was well backed. 10 years of age at the same time. Stage Stars coming in the back of a blow in a handicap chase with top weight. He has his chance too. But it's not beyond the bounds the possibility that one of the outsiders could win here. There are horses at 10 and 12 and 14 to 1, the likes of Field Door, and they all have little squeaks. Like Conflated, I think, is going to run here. That might have a chance. It's an open race. I think the Ryanair is a much more open race than the likes of the Champion Chase always, anyway. And I'd be siding with Banbridge if he runs, but I suspect he may not even turn up.
Okay, interesting. Lydia?
Very similar to that in terms of my assessment at the top of the market. I think Banbridge does need the ground. They could wait till Aintree if they don't get it. I think Envoy Allen runs very well at Cheltenham. That's very much on his side, and he also goes well fresh, and he is particularly fresh this time around. And he's got a strong chance. I would probably make him favourite, I'd say, marginally. Stage Star, I could see him bouncing back after running. It was odd that he ran on such bad ground. But the horse that I had put up for the race quite a long way back is Protectorat, and the way that he ran in the Denman, I'd like to see him ridden aggressively in the Ryanair. I'd probably want to back him each way still, I think, but I'd like to see him drop back, and I'd like to see him use his jumping, and for Harry Skelton not have to fight him as he was in order to try and conserve his energy to get home in the Denman. I'd rather just let him flow over shorter in the Ryanair.
Okay, so Protectorat, dropping back.
Thanks, Cheltenham, if you're listening, we'll have all your running plans sorted out. Riding arrangements and everything.
I think Tony's emailing them at the moment as well. Yeah.
We'll have a word with Harry about the riding arrangements later as well.
Tony, strikes that's interesting about Protectorat, because I'm conflated the same. Like both horses have campaigned and won over further, right? So is that a good thing dropping back in trip, or would you prefer to be stepping up in trip in a race like the Ryanair?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's just the distance of the race doesn't matter. These are well-established horses and he was my sneaky little big price fancy as well, Protectorat. The Stage Star, whatever explanation is for maybe the soft ground on New Year's Day, I just hate coming to Cheltenham back in a short-priced horse that failed to finish his previous run. So, for me, Protectorat is a value bet in a race that I have no real strong opinion. I think Banbridge is probably the best horse, but again, ground dependent. So I go for Protectorat as a lad that I know will turn up and he'll run a good race.
Okay, Ruby?
I think it's two different races depending on the ground. I think if you get dry ground here, you can see front runners that are hard to get back. The horse today, P1 on for Alan King. Uxie's on there. Under so Alaho. You get dry ground here, front runners can be incredibly hard to peg back. You have a couple of them in here, but if you get an ease in the ground, that changes the race completely. And if they go hard, it suits horses that stay and will come from off the pace. The likes maybe of a Capadano that could catch up on slow ground, but won't catch up on good ground. And I do agree with Lydia. I think Envoy Allen probably should be the favourite. And if it's dry, which looks like being between now and then, he's 3 from 4 at the festival, and I think he could make it 4 from 5.
Okay, so Envoy Allen, Protectorat.
I'll go Banbridge, assuming the ground is nice, yeah.
And Banbridge, presuming the ground is good. Okay, perfect. On to the Paddy Bear Stayers Hurdle next. Obviously, the highlight of the week for everybody. Sire de Burley was a very, very surprise winner last year, and it's still been completely underestimated and insulted by its current odds. Are we?
Yeah, it's amazing how he's 20 to 1. He wins the one in 8.
But he's about 20 years old as well, isn't he? Like, so.
He is, but he was only 19 then last year. And went on and done it in Aintree and everything. It's an amazing horse that nobody seems to have an opinion on, but keeps winning.
Okay, but who is going to win though?
Tupu, I think, is going to win.
Yeah, Tupu,
yeah. I think that he is a year stronger. I feel like had the dice sort of fallen differently, he could have won last year. But I think he's a better horse this time around. People have argued that he needs soft ground to be at his very best, but I'd say that Stayers Hurdle third was right up with some of his best form until his win in the Hatton's Grace at the start of this season, and that was on good to soft. I think as long as there is some curtain, there will be, and it could even be a little bit more testing than that I think he's the likeliest winner. It's a bit boring, he's right at the top of the market, but I think he is the coming force in the staying division.
Okay, Tupu.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's fair price at 3 to 1. In around that, and I could see him going off under 2 to 1. It's a horse I can see people seizing on, because there's a lot of exposed horses in this, and even though it's just say Irish Point switches into the champion hurdle, then you have Crembo, who is an underexposed horse himself, but beating Paisley Park by a head, I think he has a bit to find, and he couldn't win a handicap hurdle in Haydock before that, and the fellas were saying he was unlucky. He wasn't that unlucky either, to be honest. No, he's a chance, all right, but then you're into the old stages like the likes of Dashel, Drasher, Paisley Park and all them, and I'd say to Hupo, he probably should have won the race last year, admittedly not by a lot, but he's a year older, as Lydia said, and I think he's one horse that is at around 3 to 1 is attractively priced to me anyway, and I definitely could see that going 15 to 8 shot on the day anyway.
Okay, 2 for Tiopo.
I think Sir Gerhard has to prove he stays. I'm not convinced that he absolutely does, but he's going to have a try. And the one at the prices I'd be willing to take a chance on with headgear reapplied is Noble Yates.
Okay.
I think there'd be a huge help to him for last year's Gold Cup. I think that definitely gets him in the money here.
Okay, Noble Yates, Tony.
Yeah, I respect Noble Yates, but I think Irish Point is the one here for me in a race, as Johnny says, that have a load of well-exposed horses. He's the possible improver. He's motored in his last couple of runs, and he's just one. Potentially, he's the one that could come amongst a lot of exposed horses. Good horses now, but exposed. And Noble Yates, and Irish Point are the two for me that'll fight it out.
Okay, I'll give you Irish Point because he has Noble Yates and T Hooper. Yeah, perfect. Okay, Grant. Then we're on to the plate, and Crebley leads the market here for JP McManus. This is like once the weights were announced first, or even the entries were closed. This one was backed off the boards. Was 12s into about 4s or 5s. I mean, would you be?
I'm on it actually.
Are you? You're the reason.
Well, it's a small part of it anyway. Yeah. And I'm not taking full responsibility, but no, I chanced it. I just thought 140. Like if Jenny's Destiny has a chance in the turners, he has to be 154 or 5. And this guy, I think, would have beat him in Cheltenham back in November. Was giving him a pound. I think he would have beat him. Like, considering that he started the season off 134, the fact that he should have beat Jenny's Destiny and beat Timurus, I think they've done well to get him here off 140. I think why people backed him, including myself, because his rating was 140, he was fixed. He couldn't go anywhere. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't like you were back in another shot. Did you say, oh God, he got £6? You know what I mean? He was fixed on 140. He couldn't go anywhere, and that looked attractive. I do think he's the best bet in any handicap at the whole meeting. Okay. Now, whether you want to back him now at 4 to 1 is a different story at the same time. But I think he's
especially when you have 12s.
Yeah, well, I backed him at 10 to 1 actually. But like, he is priced about right now because a lot can go wrong in these races. Like, but I think if he gets average luck, he'll win.
Okay, average luck, he'll win.
He'll win, yeah. Barry gets something stupid, which can happen. And there has been horses running these races over the years that are well handicapped and they don't be sighted at the same time. So that can happen because it is his first handicap at the same time.
Yeah.
Look, it's first handicap out in open company anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Ruby.
If it stayed dry, I'd say I'd give an each way shout to Sharjah.
Sharjah?
Don't know if he runs here, but I think 149, a bit lower than he was over hurdles. I think 2.5 would suit him. Yeah.
Okay. Tony?
Just saying, without much conviction, Madara, Sophie Leach's horse is improving there. He's gone to the Dublin Racing Festival and won before. He's on the rise, so without having an awful amount behind it, I'd go for him as an improver.
Okay, Lydia?
This is my longest term opinion going into the festival. Let's be clear about it for the plate. I've been thinking that was the ideal race for him since about January. I think he ran well in the Albert Bartlett last year, not seeming to get home. He isn't up to open graded company, but I think in handicaps he'll be very well treated. I was listening to the Nick Luck Daily podcast and Gavin Cromwell was being interviewed, and Nick sort of asked him a general question about, who are the horses that are going best, and I was waiting for him to say, let's be clear about it. And he didn't mention him at all. Now, I didn't know whether that was a good sign or a bad sign.
Close.
There'll be some trainers in Britain, I'd go, well, he hasn't mentioned him, that's a great sign. Whereas others, you'd say that's a bad sign. But then Johnny was at a panel show, much like this one, a few days ago, and Gavin Cromwell was on, and they were asked for the naps at the end of the day, and I sort of fast forwarded to that this morning in the breakfast room when I was having my breakfast, and he said, let's be clear about it, so which caused me to yell in the middle of the breakfast room with my earphones in, that's what I wanted to hear. Everybody staring at me.
Yeah.
So let's be clear about it in the plate.
Okay, let's be clear about it. A very, very strong argument there. Who'd you say again? You said Madara and Crebley, and then
Sharjah if he was to turn up.
If he turns up, yeah, perfect, Grant. Sharjah with a shrug of the shoulders if he turns up. So, the Mayor's Novice Hurdle, this actually has turned out to maybe be one of the better races of the festival. It's going to look very competitive, real head scratcher.
It is a real head scratcher, and I'll let Johnny do the figures on it because he who educated me on them the other night. But Brighter Days Ahead, look, they couldn't be any more bullish about her in the Gordon Elliott camp, and she was very good in Navan last week. But we think a fair bit of Jade de Grugy too, so it'll be a good race, and I'm not going to turn my back on her.
And is it just the two of them? Just think, are they?
No, Johnny will do the maths on it for now, and he'll educate you.
Well, when I come to him last, then you give the verdict. Tony, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, I see it as a 2-horse race as well, and haven't seen Gordon and Jigginstown as bullish about one for a while, and they're not afraid to be bullish, and they're very often right when they get. So obviously she's very good, but I have probably my first anti-Powers bet for about 20 years. I backed Jade de Grugy at a real good price before Christmas.
In a double with Factor File.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah. and I couldn't decide which one he was running in Cheltenham, so I backed him. I got him 9-4 to win in Leopardstown. So my first part is up.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, fair play.
So I'm going to stick with Jade de Grugy for that reason, but. The confidence behind Brighter Days Ahead is just
unusual.
Surprising.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's very good from what we've seen. And I can't see anything else getting into it. These two, they're talking about them like champions, you know.
Okay.
Future champions.
So, Lydia, is there
I
anything
need
from the home team?
I need to go through it again, but it seems to me like that it's a short list of three. The two that I've already mentioned, and Di Sardinos, who gets in without a penalty, whereas the other two are going to have to concede weight to her. I do wonder whether she's more of a speed horse and whether the stamina test that will be of the new course in this race, provided they go a decent gallop, will be playing more into the hands of Brighter Days Ahead. So boring price, but I really was impressed by her classy performance at Navan last time.
Okay, Brighter Days Ahead. Right, come on.
Yeah, look, I agree with Tony there. What he's like, and it is folly to ignore these kind of vibes coming from these big stables. I think, you know what I mean. They're like, it's another horse that's being shouted from the rooftops. They won't hear a defeat for it. And look, I don't know. I have a feeling that it could be vulnerable on good ground, maybe 2 miles back. Like, if I'd say it's the soft ground, like people are telling me they should be running in the Bearing Bingham. You know what I mean? Not in this race at all. So, it's probably the one to beat. The £5 penalty is I suppose is a bit of a negative, but so does Jade de Grugy. But I was looking at the English horses and like Di Sardinos is only rated 132, and I was given that a small chance. Golden Ace is only rated 124. Like the way they're talking about Brighter Days Ahead, like it's heading for 150. So like that's why the likes of Di Sardinos and the English horses are going to struggle big time. I think if the handicapper has any clue what he's doing, and he should do. Although saying that, he put in Jericho de Repene at a very low rate as well, 1-3 something as well. So he obviously doesn't fancy that in the Supreme. Like that won't win any Supreme, like 1-3 whatever. And Di Sardinos, if it is a genuine 1-3-2, it won't be winning here to even get the £5. That means that they only have to be 1-3-7 or more. And I'd say the way people are talking, Brighter Days Ahead is at least a long way ahead of that anyway. I'd respect Jade de Grugy. Now I know some of the road the favourite, and they think the only way to get beat is if the ground is good, and it's 2 mile and it's probably as sharp as it would want to be. Look, it's very hard to oppose. It's 6-4 now at the same time and getting shorter.
It's very interesting now. This is on the new course.
Yeah,
which is the
that will help
long
it.
one
Yeah,
up the straight.
That will probably help it. Yeah, it's safe to be real vulnerable in the old course, I'd say, you know. But look, it's very hard to go. It's a bit like Fact the File. It's priced on reputation, but very often, as Tony said, them big stables are right.
Yeah, but 6-4 in a 2-horse race isn't a bad price, is it?
No, but the £5 is nasty at the same time, though. It is.
Yeah.
I wonder what the record is with horses that had the penalty.
Limini had it. After
but I'd say there's plenty had it.
Lorena had it. Limini had it. I can't think of what else off the top of my head, but if you're going on figures, to get Brighter Days Ahead to 150 is really, really simple. You go through Mel Monroe and Buddy O'Brien and Navan, they ran to their marks in respect to each other. They were third and fourth, and then you do the maths to what Brighter Days Ahead ran to. She ran somewhere in the mid 150s.
Right, okay.
Well,
if she runs to that, it to me,
She'd still be confident about Jade de Grugy.
But that puts the maths to you for Di Sardinos and the other English horses.
Although she's been running in steadily when races, she wouldn't have had an opportunity really to stand for authority.
The only thing in Di Sardinos' favour is that it has beaten Irish horses in bumpers and that. You know what I mean? So it's not as if it's arriving here with pure English form. You'd have to respect it, and I'd expect the way it'll be ridden. It'll be ridden behind the favourite and go for one go about 100 yards from the line. That's the only chance it has a win anyway, in my opinion. Yeah. But like the way they're talking, Brighter Days Ahead will probably win.
Okay,
it's damn near 50-50, is it? Well, it's 5-3 in the 8 years of running of this. 5 horses have carried the penalty to win, and 3 have not had the penalty.
It's a strange race insofar as the likes of Dino Blue and Epitante was beating this race 1 year off at a sharp price. So there are no certainties in it either, you know.
Yeah. Okay, Brighter Days Ahead.
Jade de Grugy.
Jade de Grugy and
Jade de
Grugy as well. Okay, so 50-50 split here as well. Okay, on to the Kim Muir, a wide open race. Johnny, you want no part of this, so we're going to give you a breather for this one. Lydia, were you brave enough?
No, I'm stepping back.
You're stepping away from this one as well. So, Tony.
Well, this is the race that wasn't. This the race that Meeting of the Waters was going to win at one stage, but I think
Danny got in the way.
Danny got in the way. And that all played on to Limerick and all. That was very interesting at the time. But I really have no strong opinion in the race either, you know. So I'd be only guessing.
That's fine, Ruby.
The obvious two are at the top of the bet, and another way of thinking, and Percival Galwa. Percival Galwa was coming to give Hartwood a race at Leopardstown when he fell at the last. I know the way you're thinking has followed Gaelic Warrior around a few times and ran in that same handicap chase. He just has no form at 3.25 miles. And with the Kim Muir now on the new course, it is 3.25. I think stamina really does come into it. So I think at the price that I know the way you're thinking is I'd be against him. Good Time Johnny is well up in the weights. He hasn't done it for me jumping either. I don't like the way he jumps at all. Agents Dawn ran well in it last year. I'd fancy Am I Right if he got in. I think there's a big handicap chase in Am I Right. He's off 142. If Henry runs him here, he's in the Ultima as well. But again, trends say Gordon Elliott's team, but looks like Firm Footings is gone from what I hear. And after that, it's the horse that won the national trial in Punchestown, where it all began. He's a huge penalty to carry, but at least you know where it all began will stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Am I Right?
Or where it all began.
Between the two of them.
Yeah.
And because you're the only one with a tip in the race, we'll give you 2.
And it wouldn't, at the prices they are, it wouldn't bother me if I had to have a 10 race round the two of them.
Okay, perfect. And maybe a reverse forecast just in case.
Sure, why not? Like, and then pick one out for the trifecta as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's Thursday done and dusted, except for the naps. So, Lydia, let's start with you.
Oh God, I've got to now go back through everything that I was saying. I've gone completely blank. Where are we?
We can come back to you in a minute.
Thank you very much.
Johnny.
I'll go Crebelly without hesitation anyway, yeah.
Crebelly in the plate, yeah.
Noble Yates each way in the stairs.
Noble Yates each way in the stairs. Tony?
I'm going blank as well. So,
I can step in and help you.
It's all age.
It's both of us, absolutely.
Yeah. I did mean both.
Just to clarify. I was so panicked there. I was about to not say let's be clear about it. Let's be clear about it.
Yeah, because you were pretty bullish on that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I know. But I've got completely blank. Terrible, isn't it?
Irish Point if he goes for the stairs.
Irish Point in the stairs. Okay, perfect. That's great. Okay, shortest of short break, and this is the last break. We'll be back with day 4 after this.
People wondering about Willie making his mind up. I only know of Willie having 2 bets that I've ever heard of. And one was 5-4-3 to win the Supreme, and he ran him in the 2.5. So that's what you're up against. The other one was Rule Supreme to win the Gold Cup, and he ran him in the stairs.
Well, welcome back. We're on the home straight now. On to Friday, and it's the final day of the Cheltenham Festival. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? We've only been here for about 4 hours. It's great. We're kicking off with the Triumph Hurdle. We spoke a little bit about Henderson's stable form earlier on, and Sergino would be, one of the bankers of the week for a lot of people here. On paper, it looks hard to see him beat Lydia, doesn't it? I
think so. It was a very powerful performance, and his jumping has smartened up massively from when we saw it at Kempton to when we saw him at Cheltenham. Nick Henderson said afterwards that coming from France, they kind of take it on trust that he could jump, and when he proved that he needed a little bit of help, they gave him that little bit of help, and you saw the result of that, his dominant performance, blowing Burdick Road out of the water at Cheltenham. So yeah, he's a very, very strong favourite for me. I suppose I'm be looking in the without market and latching onto Nürburgring. I think he granted a strongly run race, the stamina test of the Triumph. I think he'll turn the form around with the horses that beat him over Christmas, Calaconte and Cargisi, and Nürburgring for me.
Okay,
in the without market.
Okay, perfect. Johnny, I know you're a massive fan of Sergino, yeah?
Yeah, I like him. Saying that, he's short enough, and you would like to see a positive run from Milangino in the Boodles at the same time. Like if Milangino can't be in and around at half 1-2-6, then you'd be wondering what the Sergino actually beat the last day. Bordet Road. Probably, I don't know, it was a funny horse was running with the choke out a lot. Look, I did, visually looking at him that day, the minute he went, quick it up after that, you'd say, that's the Triumph Hurdle done and dusted. But it's probably not as easy as that sometimes as well at the same time. I do fancy him. Again, you'd have to keep an eye on the stable form. If their horses are falling out the back of the telly, going into Friday, they've had a winner, not even a smell of one, then you could be looking at 2-1. If their horses are going well, he will be worse than even money, definitely. I do fancy him, but you'd want to wait to see, I think, at the same time. I think I'd stall him just now. I do think he'd win, but you'd just take a watch and brief for the time being.
It's dangerous back on odds on shot in the first race of the day, isn't it?
Well, it can be. It can lead to catastrophe. Yeah, it can do. Like if you get off the bridle at Cheltenham as well, you're in trouble as well. Yeah. Especially, I always found that the bookies had a better chance the last 2 days when they switched onto the new course than the old. Very often that. When I was making the book myself, I was unconscious early on after a day or two. But you tend to get it back, the Thursday especially, and even into the Friday. But the Triumph Hurdle is not the race it used to be. It's not like the 30 horse kind of smash up that they used to have 25 years ago. So, look, I think he'll win, but I just wouldn't back him right now at the same time.
Okay. Ruby?
I'd be in the same boat. I'd be watching his Friday's form. So much will have happened to be different angles, different leads, much clearer picture of the ground. I would agree with Lydia though. I think that without market there is value there. I think looking back at the Dublin Racing Festival and Juvenile Hurdle there, and I think it's easy to pick a couple out of that race. I think Danny was in the right place all the way in Cargeesy. I think wouldn't be surprised if Paul stuck with Stormheart. There's not much between them, but I thought Bunting was the eye catcher, and I think in the without market I'd be interested in him, but not a race till next Friday week would I be worried about it.
Have you gone cold on Mashborough?
I think he's a big horse for the future. Just don't think he's juvenile hurdler.
Tony?
Yeah, I thought the Sergino looks the horse on the Irish. The key to the Irish form is the Dublin Racing Festival one, where I thought Danny got the run of the race everywhere. He jumped everything brilliant. So I don't think that, even though Danny fancies him of the three or her, I think Margeborough looks to me like the bigger improver. And the Jigginstown horse, what's his name? Stormheart. It was massively impressive in Punchestown, and then came to Leopardstown and just got caught on the outside going down the first time and ran a bit free and did a few things wrong. So it's hard to split any of the three, and the Tony Bloom horse then was fourth. Could be, an improver as well. But really, if Henderson horses are in form, your man looks a superior type of horse. So it's a race that I think I'd be having a cup of tea and hope that, you have Salvador Mundi there is also there. Like, Willie has about 6 for this. And what Johnny says, Master Milan Tino in the Boodles will tell you where the Henderson form is, and that's it, I suppose. If I had to tip something, it'd be Margeborough.
Okay, so pretty unanimous for Sergino, but Margeborough without, Nürburgring without.
Yeah, I'd go the favourite, but if I had to pick horse without, I think I'd go Stormheart. I agree with Tony that it was ridden out the wide outside. It didn't get the run of the race. I think it might improve past all those.
Okay, Stormheart without and Bunting without. Yeah. Perfect. That was easy. Okay, we're on to the county hurdle next, and I know King of Kingsfield have been very well touted, Ruby, recently, and you put him up as well.
Yeah, well found now. He's 6-1 favourite. I just think his style of running, since they switched tactics with him in maiden hurdles, he had been making it. They changed tactics with him, started dropping him in, and he sort of improved for it. I think he's a novice, coming from off the pace, can suit in the county hurdle. He could turn in 20th and still be in the county hurdle. I think his style of running home will suit, but he's well found in the market now at 6-1 favourite.
Okay. Johnny, any...
No huge opinion here. No, I always found the county hurdle was a real hard race. I actually think that handicap chases are more easy to decipher at Cheltenham than the county hurdle or the handicap hurdles, because there's a lot more dead wood in the chases. You have horses that are cruelly exposed in that, whereas these horses are a lot more unexposed horses. And for me, I think I'd give it a pass.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, Iberica Lord won the, whatever you call the good race in Newbury, the Sweps, I still call it, but is it the Betfair, is it?
Yeah.
And, but he's penalised now, so again, I can't really, it's a minefield. Gordon Elliott's horse is well fancied, King of Kingsfield, so maybe, but I won't be having a bet.
Grant?
They think that he needs a sound surface, don't they? The Elliott team, King of Kingsfield, that he might be at his best that way. But the way he's ridden will certainly suit the race. I think Iberico Lord will win. I don't think the penalty will make any difference. I think he did really well to chase down a horse that wasn't stopping. In fact, going away from the field in second in the Betfair hurdle. I think there's plenty more to come. He does need the ground to be soft, though. If it was a bit quicker, more like it was at Ascot, he's going to be at pace and able to hold his position. I think JP McManus has got a really strong hand in this race. I can also see Zenta running well. She returned from a break and finished third at the Dublin Racing Festival. I think she shaped well for a race like the County Hurdle. And even Comfort Zone, who was a juvenile last season, missed the festival in the end. He went over the course and distance and delivered really late by John Joe Neal Jr. in the way that you would need to in order to win a county. Even he, I think you could give a shout to. So I think JP McManus has a very strong hand, no matter what the ground is. But at the moment, as things stand, Iberico Lord.
Iberico Lord, pretty strong. And you're saying?
Yeah, I'm sort of saying Iberico Lord as well, and King of Kingsfield, they'd be the two, but I have no strong opinion.
Grant, and you two are kind of...
King of Kingsfield was tight enough. If 7 barrows were flying, I think First Street's back down to 143. He was second as a 5-year-old to Stateman of 142. He's been running in greater races. He's come back to a mark that he could be competitive of.
Okay, perfect. That'll do. Albert Bartlett is next. High Class Hero and Dancing City here for Willie. Ruby, we start with you again.
Yeah, and two good chances. High Class Hero, obviously, he's unbeaten and done nothing wrong. Dancing City bounced back to form at the Dublin Racing Festival when he beat Predators Gold, who was too keen. I think they'll both do well to beat Reed and Tommy Wrong myself. I think he's made for the race. He's a really relaxed way of going. And Grade 1 winner over a bit shorter. I think he'll get the trip, and I'd be with Reed and Tommy Wrong to chin the two of them.
Reed and Tommy Wrong. Tony?
Dancing City is a horse that I find I heard he seems to be improving rapidly, and so I'll go, as I always do, I go with a rapid improver. Hope Danny gets the ride on him. He seems to get on well with him, and Reed and Tommy Wrong. He did do it in Naas, but he didn't canter in around. He didn't, but he beat what was around. Captain Teague is there for the Paul Nicholls' team. They won the Newbury race. He's good, solid horse that'll be galloping away when a lot of them get tired. That day in Newbury, he looked beat, nearly turning in. Kept galloping the whole way to the line. You like to have one of those horses on the new course, So he could have a chance. But I'll stick with Dancing City. But he's improving so fast, I actually don't know where he's going to stop improving. Hopefully he'll go right the whole way.
He's the most optimistic man, isn't he, Tony? It's like, this is the new this is the new this. The best ever. That's great. Look,
that's what we follow racing for.
Big time. It's always about tomorrow, isn't it?
And looking at the old lads is no good to me. It's looking for the next new champion, and I think we might have a few this year.
Okay, great. Lydia?
This is a race that I'm going to go over again, I think, nearer the time, but I do like Reed and Tommy Wrong best of Willie Mullins. I think that his jumping was just not up to scratch in the early part of the Lawless of Naas. He just wasn't fluent. But as the race went on, he got better. I think the step up and trip will help him in that way, and I think he will do best of that trio. So Reed and Tommy Wrong at the moment.
Okay.
Look, I suppose Il Atlantique's run in the Birmingham will have a bearing on what kind of price Reed and Tommy Wrong is, and it'll give some gauge as to how good he is. Maybe if he did happen to win it, you could see Reed and Tommy Wrong going off 9-4 here. You know what I mean? But if he didn't run anywhere fair, he'd be back in the pack. They'll be betting 7-1 the field. Let's say it's a wide open race, and I do think when horses step up to 3 miles, maybe on slightly better ground, faster pace, anything could win these kind of races. It's hard, the hardest novice hurdle to decipher by a mile, in my opinion. Anyway, it's much more likely that you'll get a screamer in a race like this. The likes of Bertie's Dream and Very Wood, them kind of horses can win whereas they tend not to win the 2.5 or the 2 mile race. I was going to chance at an outside price a horse belonging to Jigginstown, Stiller Story. I'm feeling when he gets 3 miles and a good pace to run at, he could have a say in a race like this. Like, he's only a speculative play at the same time, but I do think he has some sort of a chance at the same time.
Okay, so taking a swing at Stellar Story.
Yeah, and you could easily say, how could you fancy him? He's a mile behind Dancing City and he's a mile behind Predators Gold, but I do think at 3 mile you can get different funny results in these kind of races.
Okay, perfect. And then you were reading Tommy Wrong, you're reading Tommy Wrong, and you were Dancing City. Perfect. Okay, on to the Gold Cup, the blue ribbon, where we see Galopin Des Champs, who's the second best chaser to be running at Cheltenham this year, according to Tony Mullins.
Your cup, while you
Galopin Des Champs is and has been brilliant this year. I mean, you definitely could have had holes in it like last year and everything in that, but this year so far, I mean, all systems go, yeah?
Yeah, well, these two Leopardstown runs in particular. Obviously, he got beaten in the John Durkin by Fast or Slow. First time up this year, and last time out last season, Fast or Slow beat him as well. But I thought he was brilliant in the Savills Chase at Christmas. I thought he was very good in the Paddy Power Gold Cup at the Dublin Racing Festival. And I see no reason why he can't follow up. I hope he follows up. I hope he goes to Punchestown and wins again. And he can prove that you can run race horses more than twice in a year.
Have you any little worry? Now, maybe it's nothing. When I know Paul came down very wide to the last, to keep Fast or Slow there, but he did look.
He had a look.
Yeah, he had a look. Now, why? I've always seen Galopin Des Champs really
having
on
a go
his
at
game.
Yeah.
Was the horse thinking something, or was it just that Paul had to ride so wide?
I'd say riding so wide, and to me, I was always taught anyway, never put an option in a horse's head. and you put the
But
option
there was
in.
a reason he did it now.
Yeah, but you gave him a look, you gave him a chance, you gave him a look at the wing, and I know Paul was keeping him wide, but to me and Paul reacted quickly, and with one tap in the shoulder, he was back a good bit in. So,
and Galopin Deschamps reacted quickly, which he might not have done.
That's what I mean. Sorry,
Yeah,
Paul
if he
reacted.
was in a
The horse
different frame of
reacted
mind.
quicker off it. But no, that wouldn't bother me. I think he's in really good form. I think he stays the best. I think Fast or Slow is the best jumper in the race, but I think Galopin Deschamps is the best horse, and I think he'll beat Fast or Slow, and I think Jerry Calam will be third.
Okay. You sound like you've got a few doubts in your head there.
No, I think Galopin Deschamps, just that little thing irks me more than worries me, what he did going down to the last. But I was asking a few jockeys, and they said the wing was dead straight, so it did look like a single pole, so it might be nothing. The horse that I think that might take him on, and everyone's saying because he won a national, they're putting him down maybe a slow. Corach Rambler has come to Cheltenham twice to the festival, won both times, and the third visit he won as well. He's 3 out of 3 at Cheltenham. He's a very good horse, and a very solid horse. So if Galopin Deschamps is to be brought down, I think Corach Rambler is the main danger. I don't see where Fast or Slow is going to see the 3-2. And that's where I see it. I'd love to see him.
You don't think he'll stay, Fast or Slow?
Yeah, I don't. Like the horse you used to ride, or maybe even before your time. That was the horse that won the RSA and they couldn't, Florida Peril, before your time.
Oh, I rode him. I was the only one that couldn't win them.
Well, he was a horse that stayed the RSA 3 mile and 1, no problem, and then failed to stay the 3-2. Dorn's Pride won the Stairs Hurl, stayed 3-1. That extra furlong in a Gold Cup is what makes it a Gold Cup. So, you know, it's just something Fast or Slow to me just mightn't be as classy over the 3-2. There's an awful difference between 3-1 and 3-2 in the Gold Cup and the RSA and them sort of races. Much more than the Supreme and the 2-5 race over hurls, you know. There's only one furlong, but there's a massive difference in that furlong. As we've seen in many Gold Cups.
I thought you won the Punchestown Gold Cup at the end of last season through stamina, because I thought that Brave Man's Game, Galopin Deschamps and Envoy Alain pressed on a bit too soon, got him outpaced, and then he came through and went past him. Now, it was a bit end of term for those three, as opposed to him who'd been much fresher. Although he had gone to Cheltenham, he hadn't had the same kind of hard season.
And you know what beat him in Cheltenham?
Well, I know Corach Rambler. I'm about to agree with you that I think Corach Rambler has got a big chance of a place. I think he's a horse who it's hard to know how good he is in this kind of circumstance. It'll be very interesting actually to see what Corach Rambler is capable of. I think Galopin Deschamps he put up a tremendous performance to win the Gold Cup last year. That was a high-class performance. He and Brave Man's Game was on full song last season. They went together over the last 2 fences, and then Galopin Deschamps pulled away by 7 lengths, was it? Or was it 6? I can't, 7 or 6, one of the two. Anyway, put a huge amount of distance between himself and that horse, who was right at the top of his game. That was an absolute top-class performance. And then at Christmas in the Savills Chase, he also put in an absolute top-class performance. None of these horses that I see here against him are capable of doing that. So if he does that, he absolutely wins. So he's got to be slightly off his game. Over a shorter trip in the John Durkan, I think I can forgive him. His jumping wasn't able to use his jumping at that trip. It forced him into errors. And last time, I just thought they just wanted to get the job done. I just think that they weren't asking too much of him. They weren't wanting an eyeballs out performance like the Savills Chase. They were just wanting to get the Irish Gold Cup one, which he did in the bag. And I think we'll see a much slicker and better horse at Cheltenham. I can see lots of different horses, arguments for different horses coming into a place. Brave Man's Game is a very big price based on last year's form, but I think he needs a sound surface. Shishkin needs to start, but I think he'll be coming home strongly, as he has done in the Ryanair last time when it was all over, and he finished off really strongly at Aintree. I think Corach Rambler's got a really good chance of hitting the frame. I think even Gentleman's Game, if it's very soft still by day 4, he also has a chance of hitting the frame. But Galopin Deschamps is just the best horse in this race, and that's it.
Okay. Lydia mentioned Shishkin there. I was going to ask you, Shishkin, Hewick. Hewick hasn't got a mention yet, King George winner.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't have fancied him in the King George, but he's here with his chance. He's entitled to run it. Of course he is. Look, I think the favourite to me has been involved in like some big races, like last year's Gold Cup, Punchestown, then on to the John Durkin, then he goes to Christmas, then he goes to the Dublin race. But that's 5. Like, these races take their toll at the same time. And if I agree, if he runs the way he ran at Christmas, like, that was a performance of the ages. Do you know what I'm saying? Like what he did at 123 lengths, that was fantastic. If he does that again, he will win, no doubt about it. But like, from a bookie's point of view, and I'm looking at one favourite at the meeting that, you know, you can't fancy them all. You know what I mean? I think anyway. I'm picking this one anyway as the one that I'm going to oppose anyway. For the reason being that there's plenty of opposition to it. Maybe not quite as good as him, but I don't think he has a lot of margin for error at the same time. And he won't get the track position that he got in his last 2 races. Like, I think he'll have to improve on last year's run.
But isn't it fair to say that last year's Gold Cup, he was out of position about 6 different times?
He was. I agree.
What he did last year was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. But I could see there's something similar happening here, because there's lots of messengers in the race, like the horse that won the RSA last year, the real whacker. A high Senor will be up there. Huey if he can, he'll be there. Like Shishkin, if he starts, won't be ridden negatively. I think Shishkin will be ridden as if he's the strongest there anyway. I think there'll be plenty of horses in or around him. He'll have to do things right. And he's weak on the exchanges too, which is a worry, I think. Nobody's mentioned that.
Will it be a big field?
I'd say you'll have double figures, Tony, 12, 14 runners, like, you know what I mean? Gentleman's game.
Is very much a factor.
I think so. Like, it's not like a 4 or 5 horse race where he gets clear side. I think Jerry Colomb is a better horse than he ran at Christmas. The extra 2.5 furlongs will suit that horse. Fast or Slow has been trained for the minute by a fella that can train him, like, not saying Willie Mullins can, of course he can. But I think there's lots of different things against him. And you could say if he does run the way he ran at Christmas, he will win. No questions out about that. But that is a big if, in my opinion, and I'll be taking my chances that he won't. Something will happen. Like, Gold Cups ain't too easy one, and very few horses win him twice. Like the like of, okay, I'll move 4 to 1, and you could have the best mate before that. But he was coming in last year, a season out of Novice Company, which they have a good record. He's a year older now. So, like, Jerry Colomb is coming in with that kind of profile this time. Now, Shishkin is probably... he'll have to devise the stats, and he's 10 years of age. But look, I don't know, I'll be closing my eyes anyway, taking a chance anyway, and laying him at whatever price he is.
I should just add I did say Shishkin, if he starts, the other thing is Shishkin, can he hold his position? Because, you know, he gets lazy mid-races. I mean, I'd be worried about where he might end up. I could see him coming home late. Do you think the reason why he might be drifting on the exchanges is that there's lots of panels like this assembled and loads of people? I've been surprised watching them how many people are anti-Galopin de Champs. Is it yakety yak?
No, I don't think so. Like, I've been on panels so far, and everyone seems about the only one on the panel that don't fancy him. Like, do you know what I mean? The ones I've been on, I'm actually surprised how strong he is.
No, that's when you're saying he's weak and he's drifting to even money in a Gold Cup.
No, but he's 6 to 4 and on the exchanges at the same time. You know,
well, so you have a good one when you drift at even money.
But he's still 34 spots out from what he was. You know what I mean? It is a size big enough slide out for a horse in such.
Explain that in English. 34 spots out. What?
Well, it's like 216. He could lay 216.
Right.
Now he's 2.5. So there's 34 dots out. Right. So like he's gone from under 6 to 5 to 6 to 4 in a race of this magnitude. I think that is some way interesting anyway.
The one thing you've mentioned that really has put me thinking is that a larger field. You know, we're so used to only 8 or 9 horses in the Gold Cup in the last.
What's the average field size in the Gold Cup?
I would imagine 8.
12.
Yeah.
Is it?
I remember years ago I was at on off tangent to this. I was in the Curragh and I was making a book. We stood a favourite in the Oaks. A pal of mine was alongside me, and we had a good whip out of this yoke, and it was belonged to Aidan O'Brien. And next thing he was beat. He came back in. It was no sign of my man, the fell alongside me, and next thing he came back. I said, did he get beat? He said, well, did not watch it. No, he said, I was in the toilet, he said.
Right.
I'll be doing some of that.
Yeah, we're doing some of that, yeah. On that note, with Johnny watching the Gold Cup from the Jacks, or listen from the Jacks, Galopin de Champs.
I'll go with Fast or Slow.
Slow. Galopin de Champs. And Corrick Rambler, big each way. Get into places maybe.
Strong each way.
Strong each way.
Okay. He wants a supplement factor file.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Hunter's Chase. Patrick Mullins was filming here. He said it's the horse he's most looking forward to riding is Billaway, which I was amazed. I thought Billaway is one of the hardest rides you could probably have by the looks of things.
I'd hate to be leading them up.
Yeah. Does anyone have a strong view on the Hunter's Chase?
No, only
Yeah.
that Dave Christie seems to be strong on this Fernlock. I wouldn't know much about the Hunter Chase's field, but he seems confident anyway.
I've watched him. I think Fernlock will win an entry. I'm not sure he'll get 3 1/4 at Cheltenham. I think it's on the line without staying.
Okay.
You got to be strong in the mind. It's on the line, yeah. I think this track will suit him, and I do agree with Ruby. I think if it comes to a struggle, he's going to have the cheek pieces on. Had a real hard race in this. The only thing that put me off him having a real go off him, but apart from that, 3 to 1, it's a much weaker renewal than other. Like if Billaway is third favourite, there's nothing really coming then, is there? Like at the same time, it's going to be less runners in it as well. It's only 19 at the minute, so you could have a 14 or 15 horse race. I'd fancy it's on the line, and you're quite strong, yeah.
I wouldn't forget Fernlock. If he gets chinned at Cheltenham, he's a brilliant jumper, strong traveller. He'd be some riding entry.
Okay. Grant, that was the Hunter's Chase. And the Mrs. Paddy Power Mare's Chase, not sponsored by my wife, I assure you, but Dino Blue is pretty sure price favourite here. In my head, JP McManus wins this race every year, I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Ellie May, Impervious. It's a good record in it.
Yeah.
I think I went for Dino Blue, did I, 2 years ago as a banker, and she let me down.
Yeah, but
me too.
And I hate horses that let me down here, so I'm going to go for Allegor de Vassi.
Allegor de Vassi, Lydia?
I think that Dino Blue will be the strongest stayer at the trip and will beat Allegory de Vassi. I think it's between the two of them, though.
Okay.
Yeah, Dino Blue, but priced accordingly. She's priced to the bone now, I think, at the same time. She still has to get the trip. For that reason, I think I'd leave her as a bet, but I think she'd probably win.
Okay, maybe.
The guaranteed stayer is Limerick Lace. Allegory's looked maybe vulnerable. Dino Blue has to prove it. Limerick Lace definitely stays, but I think Dino Blue just has too much class for them.
Okay. It's pretty unanimous, nearly, except for Tony, who doesn't like Dino Blue, holds a grudge.
I just hold
Don't
a
get
grudge.
the wrong side of Tony Mullins, he never forgets. Never forgets.
Yeah.
Right, the very last race of the festival is the Martin Pipe. Strong views here, anyway. It's
Not
hard
really,
enough
but
to get your head
the
around, I
horse
think.
that I tipped up last year, Bad, who his head was obviously wrecked when he just arrived 3 weeks here, and he ran very free. And I say he's back. Ben Pauling is absolutely on fire at the moment, and I'll give him another chance because I think he ran crazy last year. He hadn't settled into his new environment, and he has now nicely handicapped. Bad for me.
I take it all back. Like straight away, you'd rubbish my whole argument about you holding a grudge.
No, but I can do. I hold a grudge when I saw no reason for them to get beat, but I saw why he got beat last year, and I think he's settled in now. He's a huge price there. I think he's a very good horse.
Okay. Lydia?
I don't have a strong view. I mean, I'll be looking to see whether Doddy the Great runs here rather than the Coral Cup. I'm hoping he runs in the Coral Cup. This is the kind of race where I will want to have a look at the decks to see what's left and still running. And again, what's happened during the course of the week. For me, this is the Great Getting Out Stakes. I usually listen to what Ruby fancies this race because what was the horse that you suddenly came up with the 1 year? Like silence on the subject all season, and then suddenly the winner of the Martin Pipe. I can't remember what
It was only Gallop in the Champ.
Oh yes, it was only Gallop in the Champ. That's right, it was.
I only does a Gallop in the Champ this year, but and I don't think he at this price. I spoke about him on Saturday night with Johnny, but at 7-2, no way. Key to Bourbon. I think he's fits the profile. I don't for 1 minute think he's a Gallop in the Champ. I just think he's improving. 2 runs in France. He won a maiden hurling Nace. He did well to win over 2 miles in Clonmel. But do I think he's a 4-1 shot? Absolutely not. And when I see him at 4-1, straight away you go looking for horses of a similar profile that are a better price, and that's Answer to Cave and Better Days Ahead, who have similar profiles but are both now 12-1. I think this is a race you have to be some way savvy, and double figure odds make appeal to me here. Key to Bourbon doesn't at 4-1, Answer to Cave or Better Days Ahead at 12-1, each of 2 would.
Okay. Johnny?
Yeah, look, this favourite's probably tight enough now, all right. I was looking at that form line between Answer the Cave, Waterford Whispers and Fairy House. I think that they're 2 good horses. I actually backed Waterford Whispers, none under bed, but I feel he's not going to get in. He's well out of it. He's like 50 on the sheet or something.
133, probably struggle as well.
Yeah, it looks that way, whereas Answer the Cave will get in.
Yeah.
And the young lad Shinnick has been riding in graded races all the year and in races where he couldn't even claim. And you don't see that happen too often. And now that he's like most of these horses will be uniting with different riders, whereas this guy has been riding it all year. That's going to be a help.
Huge help. But you have to remember too, so the rules in England are different in Ireland. So when you start the season as a conditional, you are a conditional all year in England. So like Michael O'Sullivan can ride in this race. Now all the clever people will know that, but like Michael O'Sullivan does qualify to ride in this race, and he'll be an attraction. Danny Gilligan, there's plenty of young lads that can ride. So
yeah. I just think that with that young Shillig, the fact that he has been riding it, he's used to the horse, and he's got good form. I think that has a great chance into the cave. That's the one I think I'd go for, yeah.
So Answer the Cave.
Answer the Cave.
Answer the Cave, and you're the same.
Terence O'Brien at the price and at the Horse of Gardens in the objective colours. Better days ahead.
Better days ahead, and you're bad.
Bad to come good.
Yeah, exactly. And Lydia's keeping her powder dry for the moment.
Yeah.
Grant. Okay, that brings us to the end, except for the naps for Friday. So let's start off with Ruby Walsh.
Galloping the Champ.
Galloping the Champ.
Can't believe he's odds.
Okay.
I can't believe he's odds against.
Can't believe he's odds against. Okay.
Too sure. What's the price for the nap? Iberico Lord.
Iberico Lord, lovely.
Corach Rambler each way.
Corach Rambler each way.
Sorry, I'll go. It's on the line. It's on the line. I'll go that.
It's on the line in the Hunter Chase.
And Willie has the party after Galloping the Champ wins in the bag. He not invited.
Okay.
Corach Rambler over there.
Press-free cup predictions. I'm joking, it's fine.
England will be in the first two.
Okay. Okay.
I hope.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's not a slam dunk.
You sure man Tino doesn't want
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah. Anyway, that's it. 28 races covered. Thank you very much, everybody. That was great. Lots of winners in there, no doubt. If there's no winners in there, cheapers, we may as well give up this game. We just want a quick reminder that if you are going to have a bet next week, or indeed any week, please do so responsibly. And that's it. So thank you very much to everybody for watching, and thank you very much to the esteemed panel, Mr. Ruby Walsh, Johnny Dineen, Lydia Hislop, and Tony Mullins. Good luck.